right, y'all, come on in. Got excellent topic for today. Excited about it. Trying to make sure we set Facebook up, but come on in as we're doing so. We appreciate your presence. Hello, how's everybody doing? Welcome, welcome. Talk about something a little different, but something that's necessary. Well, I don't even know if it's different for us, but it may be different to some. We're not used to having this conversation, but we hope that everybody's doing well. We got a lot of pictures from a TED Talk today. We'll explain more about that in a second, but hopefully you guys are doing well. Let's see. Oh, almost messed up. Sorry, y'all. Trying to get Facebook set up. Then we can go ahead and get into this. But hopefully y'all are doing well and are ready to get into some in-depth study today. We'll talk about something that from a perspective that many people might not know about. That's what we do here, is talk about perspective. Just give you some cultural context that maybe you haven't heard before, and try to make sure that we are aware of some things that we might be keeping up with that really is not something that's for any of us. And once we realize that, hopefully we can come out of this nonsensical place where everything that we've been told is the truth. We know that's not exactly how this works. Right, but we want to make sure that so I think we're ready to go just about. Trying to ensure that everybody's on. All right. Oh, wow. Okay, hold on. What's going on? Try to get this together. Yeah, we got issues. I'm sorry, y'all. Trying to get started on here. I don't know what's going on. Something is blocking the camera. I don't know what's going on. I can't get it off. That's okay. We'll figure it out in a little bit. But we're appreciative of everybody for being on. Thank you for being on. We thank you kindly. We got something going on weird with the camera here on Facebook. We'll just have to deal with it. We're thankful to everybody for being on. Appreciate you. Alrighty, so now that we've got everybody on, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, Ohio, Wasayo, Anakitawaya. I see you. Namaste, Habarigani. Akwaba, Etasen, Jambo, Mimini Kofi Nina Fra Kukutana Nueve, Shalom, Yasda, Guam Yasda, Bakwatav, Barak Allah Sham Yahava. We are thankful and grateful to be in front of you again. Mashalam Khe, Anai Kofi, Kwahilat at Servants of Christ. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voices and speaking the unspoken. And today we have a little doozy for you today. Something that you may not have known about, but will help you with a lot of different things. And let's go ahead and say hello to everybody before we start diving into this. So hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm speaking ancient Hebrew or Avda or Paleo Hebrew. But how you doing, Sister Beverly? How you doing, Michael? How you doing, Sister Lynette? Everybody who's on. Sorry, I'm trying to go back through these names. Minister Tamara, please check her out on Wednesdays. Everything. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry. We give all honor and praise to Yahweh Elohim, the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree for those that need a little extra oomph. Alrighty. And we're thankful to everybody, to the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC, everybody. Hello. Let's keep it pushing. And once again, please check out Minister Tamara on her live sessions on Wednesdays, every Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time, 7 p.m. Central. How you doing, Brother Keith? How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? Her Organics, hello. Black Dragon, Sister Monica, Anthony, Sister Deborah, Rhea, Jay and Tink, Coco, Mayhew, Shabbos, Black Steel, Hakima. I don't know if I'm saying that. Hakima, is it? I don't know if I'm saying it right. 151. How you doing? Her 3802. Sister Marion, Spike Me Too. Sister Nadine, Big Ock, Jersey Big J, Brightborn, Sister Laura, Tamaya. Do I comprehend enough Spanish? I don't know. I probably don't comprehend it as well as I used to. How you doing, Greg? Let's see, Toria, Jimmy Clark. What's the best way to learn is get with some people that speak it, in all honesty, depending on what type of Hebrew you're going to be speaking, what dialect, and if you're going to be speaking modern versus paleo. I don't speak modern that well. My wife actually speaks modern better than I do. How you doing, Sister Barbara? I see you. Sister Irina. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's right. This background thing. I keep forgetting that. All right. Thank you for letting me know that. And how's everybody doing? Awesome. Already everybody's on Sheikah Shade. And we appreciate you. You guys keep coming in. Thanks for being part of the community. Brent, we appreciate you. Greg, how you doing? Already. Money Green. If I missed your name, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. I appreciate you all. And we're honored and thankful and grateful to be able to have you guys on with us. I can try put a little bit in there, but I can't. I can't put too much in the chat, unfortunately. Let me do this for you real quick. I put number in there. You can contact her at. Alrighty. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into oh, by the way, real quick, as a reminder, just as a reminder, okay, we'll give another reminder at the end of this. These are recorded, by the way, so you can always look at these if you need to catch up on this. If you say, I don't remember this or I didn't know about this, right? But real quick, oh yeah. Also too, check out Sister Beverly on here. Sister Beverly Bev's Body Butter. Feel free to look that up. Bev's Body Butter Girl, I believe she goes by on TikTok. Look up Bev's Body Butter as well. But yeah, so real quick, as a reminder. So those of you who are going to be doing meetings with us, Zoom meetings for your area, so we can start setting these meetups and stuff. And as we get ready to travel, and the ministers in your area also can be able to lead this stuff. If you're in Georgia or the Carolinas, so this Saturday, February 18th, the links will be sent out. I was working yesterday to try and catch up on days that I was behind because of being sick and being behind. So if you're February 18th, this Saturday, as far as our Zoom meetings, if you're in the Georgias and if you're in Georgia and the Carolinas, we'll be meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time on Zoom. Okay. If you're in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, or Louisiana, we'll be meeting at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time or 11:30 a.m. Central time. And then if you are on Pacific time, all the way on the West Coast, anybody who's with us on the West Coast, we will be meeting at 2:00 p.m. Eastern New York time. That would be 11 a.m. Pacific time, on March 4th. So not this Saturday. I'm sorry, on February 25th. So not this Saturday, the following Saturday. Okay. You know what? Let me start over. Too much. Okay. Let me calm down. All right. We'll get right into this, I promise, but let me make sure I get these correct. Zoom meetings. This Saturday, if you're in Georgia or the Carolinas, you'll be at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. If you're in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisiana, at 11:30 Central time, we'll be meeting up. All right. If you're in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisiana, on February 25th. So not this Saturday, the Saturday after this Saturday, February 25th, at 11 a.m. So that's going to be 10 a.m. Central. So that's going to be 10 a.m. Central. we're going to be meeting up with everybody who is in Texas and Oklahoma on Zoom, Texas and Oklahoma at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time or 11:30 a.m. Central time on February 25th. If you're in Illinois, Michigan, the Dakotas, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, or Indiana, we'll be meeting up with you then. If you're on Pacific time, on February 25th. If you're on Pacific time, we'll be doing a Zoom meeting for you at 11 a.m. your time, at 11 a.m. Pacific time. All right. Okay. On March 4th, the first Saturday of March, if you're in Florida, we'll be meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern time. If you're in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, New Jersey, on March 4th, we'll be meeting up at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then if you're in Maryland, Virginia, DC, or Pennsylvania, we'll be meeting up on March 4th at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern or New York time. The Saturday after that, March 11th at 11 a.m., everybody will be meeting up for an SOC meeting. And on that Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, or 11:30 a.m. Central, or 10:30 a.m. Mountain time, or 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, if you are a moderator, we would like to have a meeting with you on March 11th. I will repeat that later on. Okay. Alrighty. And yes, the intermittent fasting, it does start today. So we're asking from sun up to sundown. If you can go ahead and make sure that you participate, or if you are participating with us. You said no love for Florida. Literally just said Florida is its own region. You're going to have a meeting on March 4th. Florida, it'll be your third meeting actually that you've had on Zoom meetings. So if we have your information, hopefully you've been with us prior to. Okay, now that we got all that done, right? And thank you to everybody being on. I know I probably missed some names that were coming on, and we missed some people who are leaving now because they're like, what in the world is this person talking about? All right, now that we got that out the way. Okay, once again, these are Zoom meetings. These will all be on Zoom. Okay, these will all be on Zoom so that we can start setting up things where people can feel safe to come out and be together. All right, so Zoom meeting February 18th at 11 Eastern, Georgia and the Carolinas. February 18th, Zoom meeting 12:30 Eastern. That'll be Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisiana. February 25th at 11 a.m. right, Eastern, so that's 10 Central. It's going to be Texas and Oklahoma. At 12:30 p.m. Eastern time on February 25th, it'll be Illinois, Michigan, the Dakotas, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Indiana. At 2 o'clock Eastern time, which is 11 a.m. Pacific time, anybody who's on the West Coast or Pacific time, that includes Nevada as well. We got a lot of people in Vegas, right? That includes you guys on February 25th. It'll be a Zoom meeting. All these are Zoom meetings. You guys will be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. March 4th, first Saturday of next month, all right, at 11 a.m., everybody in Florida, that'll be your meetup. All right, these are all Zoom meetings. All right, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, if you're on March 4th, if you're in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, or New Jersey, we'll be meeting up. And then if you're in on March 4th, if you're in Maryland, Virginia, DC, or Pennsylvania, we'll have a Zoom meeting as well. Okay. All right. So if we have your information, you should be getting this stuff before the Zoom meeting even happens. All right. So you'll be getting word sent to you before the Zoom meeting happens. All right. I'm just announcing it. We'll announce it at the end. And don't forget that March 11th, after that, everybody will have a Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. And at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, we're asking for all the moderators to be ready for a Zoom meeting just for you all. Okay. All righty. All right. So thank you for being on. Thanks for hanging in through that. We appreciate you. How you doing? _Ikadash. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. Sister Irena, everybody okay? So we appreciate it. Said mods muted you for no reason. Well, I don't know if the moderators mute you for no reason, but thank you for being on. Appreciate you. All righty. Yeah, we did go to Florida, right? Last year's amongst many different places we went to last year. Okay, so, but we appreciate you. Thank you so much. All right, and thank you for the love. If I missed it, thank you for the love. Appreciate it. How you doing, Sister Cynthia? I'm excited. All right, so here we go. So today we're going to talk about the truth about Manhattan. What can we learn from Manhattan? The truth about Manhattan. And how you doing, Minister Morel? How you doing, Sister Latoya? How you doing, Sister Sharice? Minister Shantae? Adama? Jojo? I don't know if I said that correctly. Bakwatap to everybody. All right. But the truth about Manhattan. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right. The truth about Manhattan. Now, there's a term that we don't really know as much as we should know because we're dealing with a lot of people who have kind of been, buried in the story of mankind. And if you're part of the Patreon family, uh, I'll put all this information for you guys later on, so you'll be able to go back and look at this. But if you want to take notes or whatever while we're doing this, I invite you to do so. Right. But we're going to talk about these things today. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about these things today. So we're going to talk about Gowanus, and Gowanus is something that really leads us to something a little more interesting, which is the study of Manhattan. Gowanus basically is dealing with a group of people, and it deals with something that happened in the story of mankind, where there's this mindset that we have to where the island of Manhattan was sold for basically $24 at the time. And now is the most expensive real estate. And because of the way that we operate and we listen to things and we listen to people, in our mindset, we have this belief system that is because natives were stupid, right? Like all people that are enslaved in some way, shape, or form are so that they were enslaved because they were stupid enough to enslave themselves. And then they don't believe what we believe. They're not civilized, right? I'm insensitive. Okay, well, thank you so much, Documentary Chick. We appreciate you for being on, and thank you for showing me how insensitive I am. I will strive to be better for those who actually care about what we're doing or saying or this and that or whatever, but I appreciate you, right? I don't know what happened, but I do trust the moderators. Okay. But I thank you for being on and saying who I am without knowing me. I appreciate it. So now that we've done that, right? And we and see, even before I can even get into it, see, I'm so insensitive that, right, you got to comprehend that anyways, we'll leave it there, right? So here's the deal. When we're looking at these things, we have to ask ourselves, right? We have to ask ourselves, are these things really true? Right? Did we actually learn things that were true? The things that I'm going to talk about today, right? Did we even learn the truth? Did we even learn the truth? See, the truth about Manhattan, we were talking about last night, that truth creates freedom. The truth shall set you free. You said you saw a clip. Yeah, I've seen that clip by Dave Chappelle, right? That was a really short clip. But see, the truth about Manhattan, and it shows a truth about something that's happened over and over and over again in society, which is somebody comes and takes over something. And when they come and take over it, they say that that's the end all be all. Whatever they say about it is what it is. How you doing, G? But let's deal with this, because when we look at things and we start looking at them true, we have to have a different conversation. So if I'm, for example, if you look on this map, on a map of the time, you'll see some names, and a lot of them we don't think about them, but there's a couple names on here that should stand out to you, right? And how you doing, Sister Tamar? There's a couple names on here that should stand out to you, right? If you look on the map, you'll see Manhattan, and you'll also see a term that's called Jamaica. I say a term because a lot of people don't know what Jamaica means. Now, we have all these ideas of what Jamaica means, right? We have all these ideas about what Jamaica means, but we don't recognize what a Jamaican is. So you think that a Jamaican only exists in Jamaica, just like a lot of people think that a Ghanaian only exists in Ghana when there's an ancient Ghana. Or you think that a Negro is something that was made up as fallacy, but the reality is Negro is one of the most ancient terms for West Africans that was actually taught to people of Spain and other places when they were over there, like the Carthaginian Empire and then the Moorish Empire after the Romans, did their thing over there. Right. And so we don't think about these things correctly. How you doing, Sister Judith? We don't think about these things correctly. But see, Jamaicans are Taino people. And if you know about Taino people are Omekshi. And if you know about Omekshi people are people that are mixed with African blood. Yeah. And we think about the same thing we do with natives, right? Sister Monica, same thing, if we're not careful, we'll do with the natives that we do with Jamaicans. See, Jamaicans were already here, just like natives were already here. That's why Negroes in Western law concerns native indigenous people as well as Africans that were brought over. You said you thought that was the Haitians? Well, what, that were Taino? Taino is many places. If you're Puerto Rican, you're Taino. If you're Cherokee, Tisalagi, Anakitawa, or Anakitawaya, excuse me, Choctaw, Haudenosaunee, right? Wampanoag, Blackfoot, Sioux, Creek, technically are all Taino, right? Dominicano, you're Taino, right? Cubano, you're Taino. Mexicano, you're Taino, whether you like it or not, right? Aztec, you're Taino. So what do I know? If Columbus Columbus comes, gotta escape, time of people ended up all over from Taino. What do I know? What do you do if Columbus, sorry, what do you do if Columbus comes, gotta escape? Oh, okay. Well, as far as them leaving, sure. But Taino, once again, is not just one place, just like Jamaican is not just one place. See, what we get our ideas from and a lot of stuff, we use even Eurocentric prisms to be able to talk about this stuff. So we still have an interesting thing, right? We have an interesting part where it's like, whether you're talking about Hispaniola, right? Or whether we're talking about, when Hispaniola becomes Haiti, it becomes, Dominican Republic, right? Or we're talking about Cuba, right? Which had 3,000 people that were free and 5,000 people that were made slaves before there was even a massive slave trade, right? We're talking about the same people. We don't talk about us all being together. How you doing, Eric? We don't talk about us all being the same people enough, right? We talk about humanity, but then we allow people to split us up. And look, I believe in tribalism to a certain degree, but humanity is something to where we all at some point have to admit of being together. How you doing, Bradley? And how you doing, WC Cooper? How you doing, Brother TJ? So we got to keep this 100. How you doing, Jupiter? So we got to keep it a buck, right? Why would you have Jamaicans on an old map that are nowhere near what you call Jamaica? If it wasn't known that Jamaicans were not just in Jamaica. When did they start? By the way, you have to ask yourself, see, we go by other people's names. Like, for example, some people say you got to be an African American, but you got to recognize that an African American didn't even exist in your lexicon until like the late 1970s, early 1980s. Nobody considered themselves to be an African American. Now, there were some people starting to use stuff like Afro American, but it wasn't something a lot of people used. It wasn't until somebody told Jesse Jackson and others to start using that word. And then Jesse Jackson runs for president. And then all of a sudden now you consider yourself an African American, but you weren't an African American until 1980. So when somebody tells me, stop talking about this, you're an American, you're an African American, you're not even African American, you're an American. Well, technically, what do you want to talk about? See, because we'll go into this a little deeper. And I don't even know, I got so many pictures to share with you guys today. I don't even know if I'll be able to find it. I probably would. I think, okay, that's what I was looking for. See, a lot of people don't even recognize like an actual penny that was made, printed, or created at the mint used to have a Native American on it. You only think about the one with Abraham Lincoln. But a penny from 1901 has a native on it who's supposed to be of the same people we're going to talk about today. These people are Lenape people. That'll be our focus for today, tribally. Yeah, people returning to their native lands or just simply being where they always were. Right? Who is it, babe? ODB. Y'all know him as Old Dirty Bastard. I'm not cursing, that's his name, right? But ODB, you know him as ODB. ODB would tell you that he's native. He knew who he was. I didn't know for sure, Tuckwa, if you were Lenape or not. I couldn't remember. So there you go. We got somebody who's Lenape on here, right? So she knows a lot about the story of her people and her tribe, so she can correct me or add to this as she feels free to, right? So we don't know ourselves, but you don't recognize that Lenape and Jamaicans technically are like this. Of course, you can ask whichever question you like. I don't know how many I can keep up with all the platforms and stuff we have going, but you can always feel free to ask whatever you like. And how you doing, Sean? If I didn't say so already, And how you doing, brother Jermaine? Right. So there's many tribes, of course, right? But see, the reason I put this up first is because we got to set a foundation. See, what is the original definition by Western law, not even by our law? What is the definition, the original definition by Western law of an American? Because there's two definitions by law, not just as far as what Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. told us, there's two Americas. There's actually two definitions in Western law for an American. What's the first one? What's the first definition of an American? You said every time you claim a different political status, you're not legally covered under previous agreements or treaties. Sure. That's why I claim non-citizen national, just become private. So I'm with you, right? How you doing, Marlon? So can somebody tell me in the chat? I know some of y'all know it, right? What is the original definition of an American? There we go. It is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. And by the way, this is not actually copper-colored either, right? This is copper colored and then shined up enough to make sure that y'all like it and polished and stuff. But this is not the actual, what I have here is not really the actual color copper either. But as you can see, as it gets older, it gets back to its color. Right. So the original, but this is not something that's actually correct on here, by the way. See, we're going to talk about this, but see, even the depiction of the copper colored person is not correct. I'm not talking about facial features. I'm talking about the headdress. Right. You're olive colored. Okay, cool. Right. Right. Which olive? See, even olives come in different colors, right? There's black olives, there's green olives, there's brown olives. You know what I'm saying? But I get what you're saying, right? We're trying so hard to go by other people's lawful standard in the West when you should just be a private citizen and you can live by your own standard, right? But I'm just introducing some contextual facts, right? You said the real color is lighter if it's dirty and oxidized, and then it's darker. Okay. Okay. A color, if you clean it up, this is a clean one, right? And what do you mean by clean? What you mean by clean is that you polished it up, you've made it look a certain way. If you were to find copper in nature, which would be oxidized, what color would that be? But that's okay. I'm not here to argue the colorism thing. See what I'm saying? We can't even get to it because people are so big into trying to figure out the colorism and this and that and blah, blah, or whatever, right? Hear what I'm saying? Right? Because if you don't clean a coin, see, you think that clean means, see, we don't even comprehend what words mean. Even if you have something clean, it means that it's lawful or legal. Right? If you have something clean doctrine, sound doctrine, even it's talking about hygienicos or hygienic, right? So what is the standard of clean? If a native saw copper, did they feel like the copper had to look like a penny, or did they just use copper the way that it was? If you see gold in nature, does gold look like what it is? You hear what I'm saying? Or is gold, you see, but see, you think that when somebody cleans it up, they're making it what they would call civilized. And that's what we deal with in these stories, right? That people are dealing with something that they are telling you is civilized. Now, we don't know what civilization is. We think civilization means that you're better, or civilization means this and that. Civilization is according to your culture. The word savage or sauvage en français literally means wild. What does wild mean? To be in the wilderness just means you're not in somebody else's civilization. There's no such thing as a wild animal in nature. Did you know that? By definition. I want to help us out here. There is no such thing as a wild animal in nature. Right? There is no such thing as a wild animal in nature. Right? Because in nature, the animal is in its civilization. If you want to talk about the animal kingdom, then the animal kingdom must come with the animal culture. Animal culture must come with the animal civilization. So a lion in its natural habitat, in its nature, is not wild, it is civilized. Now, when you go to the zoo, right? My family and I, we just went to the zoo on Friday. When I take my family to the zoo, then I see a wild animal. But see, you had somebody reverse the process on you. We need to reverse the curse, but they reverse the process, the thought process. How you doing, Reginald? How you doing, Michael? Right? So now you're thinking that something that is wild is something that is not subject to somebody else's civilization. See, so if something's wild, I should be able to kill it because it's not something that fits in my civilization. I should be able to put it in zoos. By the way, did they not put copper-colored people and black people and Moors and tribes that were civilized and other in their civilization? Did they not say they were wild and put them in zoos? Did they not do that? Did they not do that in New York, around Manhattan? Hmm. There's a vibe when you walk around the Bronx Zoo. If you ever been there, it's a weird vibe because they had people in there at one point. In Europe, they had people in zoos. That's why you have people like National Geographic that literally present these people to you like animals. Ooh, look at them. They talk about them the same way. Matter of fact, you don't know enough about Carl Linnaeus and you don't know enough about Charles Darwin. Carl Linnaeus is somebody who was the father of what Charles Darwin did. We don't know that there's 6 types of evolution. Even if you believe in evolution, do you know all 6 types and where they come from? Yep. Had a man in a cage, everything. Right? Watch. Where does what is the title of Charles Darwin's book that took off and that so many people had to read and so many people still get their ideas from today? I'm on. Yeah, we're gonna get some food for thought today, right? What did Charles Darwin? What's the name of his book? You just talk about his book as far as the origin of species, the theory of evolution. If you even know that much of it, that's not the title of his book. That might be the title of one of his books later on. I'll give you that. I'm talking about what is the title that made Charles Darwin stand out, written in 1859. Do you know the title of it? Do you know the whole title? Or do you know just what somebody gives you that? Right? Do you know the whole title? Watch this. Charles Darwin's book is called The Origin of Species. Technically, it's the origin of species colon the theory of evolution, but they don't like to tell you that part. So, okay, we'll leave that alone because it is a theory. But nevertheless, right, it can be based off of natural law and observations, but it's still a theory, right? A theory is not a fact. A theory is something that you use to get from A to C. We know what A is, we know what C is, we don't know what B was, so we come up with theories to help us out. That's what a theory does. But nevertheless, let's just say it the way y'all like to say it because there's even argument about what I'm about to say. But you can look this up for yourself. The original title of his book is called The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, right? Or the the survival of favored races in the struggle for life. What did I just say? See, you'll be sitting there telling me all this stuff, but you might have missed it because you've never actually read the book. You listen to other people tell you about the book. You've read excerpts of the books in your school books, right? But you never read the book, right? So once again, this is Charles Darwin's title of the book. How you doing, Justin? It's called this once again, The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. You think natural selection is just selection of nature, but what does it say? The origin of species by means of natural selection, or so that'd be semicolon, right? Basically, here's another way of what he's trying to say. If you don't get that it's the origin of species by means of natural selection, or semicolon, the survival of favored races in the struggle for life. Right? That's what it is. So he wrote the book about favored races. And then you'll see in parentheses at the bottom, underneath the title, you'll see that this is backed up by royalty, backed up by geologists, and is backed by who? By people that are Linnaean in doctrine. Yes, favored races, right? That's what evolution is supposed to be about, favored races. So you'll have our own people arguing on behalf of something that actually was written out to be racist. I'm not saying that you can't look at other forms, other people's beliefs on evolution, but I'm saying a lot of you don't use it. You use Darwin. That's your standard. Now, when I say Linnaean, I'm talking about Carl Linnaeus. Now you got to look up Carl Linnaeus. Carl Linnaeus is somebody who studied animals and labeled them by races. I ain't saying something that you can't look up, right? Go and look for it. right? But I need you to comprehend. See, Carl Linnaeus is somebody who identified animals by races, and then he started doing the same with human beings, and he broke it down into 4 races of human beings. Because human beings have to come from animals, they came from different animals. So if they're different races, they come from different races. So therefore, Carl Linnaeus wrote out that there are 4 races. The white race came from one animal. The Native American race came from one animal. The Asian folk, their race came from one animal. And the Africans, the Negroes, came from one animal, right? And that's the order that he put them in. Yeah, the division is killing us. So we got to deal with the division. If we're going to be problem solvers, we got to deal with the problem, correct? So I didn't make up racism. Racism is a system based off of competition. It started off with a lot of people trying to fight each other. And then when you ran out of people in Europe to be able to fight, and the King of Kings, the Pope, said, we can't keep killing each other else I'm losing what makes me king. He said, let's go fight those brown people over there. That's where a lot of it starts. As far as the modern form of racism. Now, racism technically has existed forever. It was more, you call it maybe tribalism. We're all the same race, sure. So why don't we treat each other like it? Let's talk about why we don't treat each other like it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's real easy. It's a cop out to be, man, don't talk about it at all. We're all the same race. If you talk about it, then it's going to exist. It existed before I came. Before my mouth was formed in my mother's womb, racism already existed. So how do we get rid of something if we don't know what it's in, and we don't admit how much of it is? So yes, we are all one human race. Right? By the way, what does human mean? Humus man. Humus is what? Dark, rich, nutrient earth, and man is spirit. So according to science, Western science, they would say that in order to be a human, you have to be a spirit inside of dark, rich, nutrient earth. That's what they say. So even in that, you're dealing with stuff. You're dealing with phrenology. Do you even know what phrenology is? What about eugenics? See, the person who came up with eugenics is Charles Darwin's cousin, who liked what his cousin said. Once again, his cousin writes a book based off what Carl Linnaeus said. What was Charles Darwin's book? Charles Darwin's book was The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Fight for Survival for I'm sorry, for the fight, the survival of favored races in the struggle for life, and then told you it was a Linnaean doctrine. You don't like the word doctrine, but then eugenics was made by his cousin, who liked what his cousin did and said, hey, I'm going to show you how bone structure and how cells and DNA that people have and all this. I'm going to show you why certain races are better than others. I'm going to take it deeper. So it was Carl Linnaeus to Charles Darwin to his cousin to what people are doing today. And this is 1859. So this is during the Kansas Wars. You're about to go into the Civil War in the Americas, if that's where you stay, or the United States of America. Right? Somebody taught you that. That's why you should read books like by Dr. Joy DeGruy called PTSS, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, where she says not only did Black people have to be taught this, right? It's colonial constructs here. Black people had to be taught this, but white people had to be taught that they were white. Because, nobody thought that you could be white because white's not even a color. Do you like the theory or do you like the fact? Theories are not facts. So let's deal with the facts so that we can stop dealing in the theories. You see what I'm saying? Right? Dr. Joy DeGruy, read her book. She teaches you that not only are there things that we hold because we were taught wrong, but white people were taught. By the way, white is not a color. White just means the absence of color. It means bright. It means clear. It means, translucent. Even if you want to go there, it means that you can see through it. It is not color. So there's no human being that's ever existed that could be labeled as white until somebody came and told you to label yourself as white or to label them as white. No such thing. Do you hear what I'm saying? We're having an argument about this stuff, but we don't even have the right mindset. Sure, we are Yasta, right? Right? You see people say what? Go look at snow. Does snow have color? You think as white as snow because you think white is a color. Does snow have color? How you doing, Chef? You said go read a book or something. Yeah, I'm literally coming out of books. I literally just mentioned a book you can go read. So Go read the book so you can be on point with what I'm saying, right? You can actually hear what I'm saying, because you can't hear that which you haven't read, right? How can you read? How can you speak on what you haven't read? You hear what I'm saying? So watch this, right? Peep game. Peep game, right? There's no such human being that has ever existed. I don't care how much albinoism they're dealing with. You can't be a human being and be alive and be white. Why? Because you must have melanin to exist. Yeah, I see you talk about, yeah, that'll definitely upset some people. You said all our scientists are father of science or white men. Yeah, depending on what culture you're using, exactly. And the fact that that they're related is suspicious as well. There you go. Right? You said white and black are shades. No, white can't be a shade of anything because white's not a color. You hear what I'm saying? The further back in the story of mankind we all go, no matter if you're talking about your canonical viewpoint or your scientific viewpoint, which really is your canonical viewpoint anyway, right? You're all talking about, see, watch this. Once again, let me just stay with this. See, we're having a problem here because people want to go to all these different things. You don't want to talk about the reality. What color is snow? Does snow have color? How you doing, Minister Shante? I can easily prove this. We can easily prove this. You said when I melt down butter, because it's yellow, it stays yellow. Melted snow is clear, not white. There you go, right? We can easily prove, right? Snow has no color. A snow crystal has no color because it is white. You just were taught wrong. I haven't even gotten into Manhattan that much. But see, we got to make sure, because so many people are going to miss this. So you have to have melanin in order to exist. Just like a plant must have chlorophyll to exist, you must have melanin to exist. So there cannot be a white person, right? Watch this. What color is the color of a polar bear's fur? You would say white, correct? Even though it has different furs. So the inner fur is actually black, even though you say that's just a shade, right? Because black attracts color, because black attracts heat. Everything that has color, energy, and so color is energy that's even moving around and showing itself in different energy, right? If you wear an obsidian ring, you feel a different energy than if you wear a lapis lazuli ring, right? That's because it has color, it has energy, right? Polar bear fur is white because white's not a color. So it's clear, it's bright, it reflects. See a polar bear, right? When all of the snow goes away, it does not keep the same color fur, does it? What's my point? Stick around long enough to find out. That's all you have to do, right? And then people, it's weird. People react like this and then say, "Why did somebody block me?" I can see why people mute you for a little bit. You don't, right? You're so busy trying to tear something down, you won't listen. How you doing, Concrete Rose One? So the polar bear's fur is going to change, not because it changes color. It's going to be the same color it always was, which means it's going to reflect that which is around it. So I'm trying to get you to see, even your concept of being like he's against white people. I can't be against somebody that doesn't exist. I didn't make up the context of white. You cannot be white and be alive. Everything that's alive, that's a human being or an animal, it must have melanin, period. How you doing, Melvin? It must be. You said, so what do I call, people otherwise known as white people? I don't call them white. Maybe I call them Irish. Maybe I call them friend. Maybe I call them by their name. Maybe I call them, maybe I call them British. Maybe I call them Italian. I don't know. And even Italians will be upset if you try to call them white. But everybody has a color. You have to have melanin to exist. You call yourself white. Your people started telling you that you were white. I didn't do that. Even Caucasians are people from a particular place. So not everybody can be a Caucasian. That's like saying every Negro has to be an African person. Like every Negro didn't come from Africa by law. Negroes can be indigenous, or they can be people that came from other places. And Negroes come in different shapes and sizes and colors, just like white people do. See, I don't have a problem with racism because it's not part of my culture. It's not a part of my concept. See, there's something called a sept, CEPT. That means that you have an actual idea, a sept. So you have a bad precept, a bad environment for your sept, your idea, which has caused you to have a concept of there actually being something called white as the color, but there's no such thing. You said due to amount of the color of your skin to existing. That's exactly not what I said. By the way, you don't recognize how melanin works. You need to go and listen to people who've been at melanin conferences. See, anybody who melanin always has to be measured from the inside out, not the outside in. So somebody can be lighter than me and still carry more melanin. Did you know that? If my pineal gland ever gets messed up, right, and it's not producing the melanin the way it's supposed to, and it gets hard, well, guess what happens? Then I actually start losing memory and different things like that. And so even though I might be darker than somebody else, a sign of losing your memories when you get older is usually a sign that you actually have more less melanin flowing through your body than what's supposed to. So you could be somebody lighter skinned than me and still have more melanin, but you only look at the easy stuff. You've been taught to look at the cake icing and never actually taste the cake for yourself. You said not to be derogatory. However, the pig was used to represent Caucasus people for the pink hue. Well, I mean, in certain places, yeah, they did that, right? But I'm just trying to show you, right, that there's a whole thing here where people are missing it. Now, I'm gonna just go ahead and go into Manhattan because at this point, you can see certain people are not going to be able to find this no matter what. You said, "Ain't no white, ain't no black." For you, that's your culture, and that's fine. But I'm gonna give you a different cultural context. If you choose to listen to it, then feel free to actually listen and observe and maybe be like, maybe there's something more to what he's saying. Because I haven't once said that I hate anybody because of the color of their skin or that somebody's stupid because of the color of their skin or whatever, have I? But that's where people are going because you live in a culture that says that's what your culture is built on. So because I speak on it, that's what it is. But if you notice, once again, Jamaican. Now, what does Jamaican even mean? Jamaican is actually talking about beavers. Did you know that? Once again, Jamaicans are in more places than just Jamaicans. So if I deal with Jamaicans, you have to deal with the fact that you're dealing with a bunch of people that are what? That are supposed to be from the land of beavers. Question for you: how many beavers are in Jamaica? What you think is Jamaica? How many beavers exist there? And I said this earlier, we didn't get back to this because people are so messed up over this and they never heard this before. But question for you: when was Jamaica? I said this earlier. When did the name Jamaica come into being? You said none. All right. When did the word Jamaica, just like when did the word African American come into being? Nobody called himself that till 1980, right? But when did the term Jamaican come into existence? When did Jamaica, as far as it being a country, come into existence? Because we can see here on a map in ancient times it obviously existed. So were they always Jamaicans? If what was a Jamaican thought of as? In Northeast United States of America, 18th century. Okay. So in Northeast United States of America, they had Jamaicans before they called you Jamaicans down there. They said that the Jamaican people, they were trying to say they looked like other people they'd seen before. They said that they were tall. Matter of fact, they said that they were as treacherous as they were tall. We'll give you some books. You can read this in a second, right? You can look this up for yourself, right? But they said they were as treacherous as they were tall. So they said they were tall. They said they could fight very well. They said that they loved their women. They said that they knew how to till the land. And they told you that they were dark skinned. How you doing, Tracy? Right? That's what the people, not us. That's what the people who came over and tried to do you dirty said. And then taught you that there was such thing as white. Now I want to bring this up because once again, we're gonna talk about the truth about Manhattan and the Lenape people. The Lenape people, right? We have a Lenape person on today, right? So with the Lenape people, right? These Lenape people, they were, here's something that you might not know. When you walk around Manhattan, you're going to see a picture very similar to what's on this bell. Now, if you're not able to see the bell, basically on one side, you're going to see somebody who is European. And on the other side, you're going to see somebody who is indigenous. And this shows up all over the place in Manhattan. It does. If you live there, you see it all the time and probably don't even recognize. You probably get tired of seeing this, but maybe you see it as a seal, right? And by the way, what I'm about to talk about today is happened in 1625. And the fact that you have never once learned about this and people have kept this under wraps. I mean, basically, we're 2 years away from being able to say officially for 400 years, right? 1725, 1825, 1925, 2025. 2025 is right around the corner, right? 400 years. We know about 1619. What about 1625? See, it's interesting. We just skip past that. We act like years didn't exist, and we act like everybody told the truth about this existence and all this stuff. But it has a. We have to have a proper mindset of this, right? 1625. There was a deal made with the Lenape people where Manhattan was sold. And we talked about this on Monday, I believe, right? But we got to be honest about it. Manhattan was sold. But here's how do treaties work? How do treaties work in Australia? How do treaties work in India? How do treaties work in the West Indies? How do treaties work in African countries with Queen Nzinga? How do treaties work with Kwame Nkrumah? How did treaties work with Sankara? How did treaties work with Aztecs? How did treaties work with Wampanoag? How did treaties work with the Haudenosaunee, or who you call Iroquois Nation? How did the treaties work? They would say it out loud, and then they would write them in English. And in English, they would write something opposite of what they said out loud. They had a verbal contract, but then tried to lie and say that what was said verbally was actually what was signed on in a written contract. Because, natives thought that they could trust you at your word. That's our culture. But you can't trust somebody at their word if they're going to do you dirty in the treaty. You'll have all these people today. See, that's why you have to be careful. And I love my Moorish brethren. I'm a Moor. I get it, right? I'm a Moor by birth. I'm a Moor by color. I'm a Moor by whatever way you want to slice it. I get it, right? Some Moors would argue what I said, but I get it, right? That's why I'm non-citizen national. That way I don't have to even trip off of that. But what I'm here to tell you, right? What I'm here to tell you, and I'm glad, I'm glad you're honest about that. Never having a black friend, because a lot of times we don't know context. I've met people that, when I was in boot camp, met people who said they never knew black people, and they were saying some racist stuff the whole time. And I'm glad. So it's great that when we have people that can actually have dialogue and give some context to things that we've never seen. Right. But you'll see a seal all over New York. Matter of fact, if you worked in the food industry, I'm gonna show you something. If you worked in the food industry in New York, you've seen it like this, right? The same seal, but you'll see the letter A put on it, right? Hopefully that's what you get, because you want to pass food inspection. Anybody ever worked for a restaurant in New York? Or anybody ever worked for a restaurant and you see seeing some stuff, right? Well, there's a seal that you're going to see. You got one. This is the seal for New York, where you have one. You have the native on the left and the European on the right, and then they still seal your food today by that, right? And you're hoping that you got just a few enough rats in New York. I'm just trying to keep it 100, right? Because you're allowed to have a certain level of rats in your restaurant and still get an A grade, right? So, but you're hoping, right? You're hoping to get that A grade. In order to give you the grade, they have to cover up what came. Oh, y'all ain't ready for this. Y'all ain't ready. I'm just saying. See, in order to give you a grade, they have to cover up what happened before. In order to say it's lawful or legal in their standard, they have to cover up what was lawful or legal for somebody else. It's the truth. This is why we have to go through a thing of being like, hey, this stuff is in everything that you do and see. And everything you do or see, there's a story behind it. There's no such thing as random occurrences, right? This stuff is real. Now, by the way, when you see this, if you didn't notice, right, you have on the, and once again, you have to think stage right, stage left, right? Stage right, basically, if you've never been on the stage, never done a play, or you've never been in an orchestra or whatever, stage right basically is when I'm facing the crowd. So the crowd, when you see something on your left, the person who's on stage would call that right. And the crowd, if you see something on your right, this on a stage, they would call that left, right? Stage right, stage left. Okay. So when I say on the right-hand side, stage right, I'm actually talking about what you view on your left. So like that's why even when you talk people who make pictures of heaven and stuff like that, if you see somebody on the right-hand side, you have to go by that person's right, not by what's on your right, but what's on the person's right. Okay. Stage right, stage left. And thank you, Sister Cynthia. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Right. How you doing, Juanetta? So on the right-hand side, you'll see the European person. On the left-hand side, you'll see the native. Now, I want you to see this because people think, oh, you're going too deep into imagery. But once again, you don't know etymology. So since you don't know etymology, you have a problem with these words. Once again, all these pictures, we're going to make sure that we put them up for you. If you're a part of the Patreon kingdom, it will be there for you, okay? I promise you, it will be there for you, all right? But watch this. So you've seen these in a couple places, but here's something that you might not have looked at. So there's a book where you can read about the seal, right? The seals that they use in the city of New York. You can read it. There's a book talking about the seals of the city of New York, right? So when people say I'm making this stuff up, we're gonna you can read this for yourself. Do some research, do some study. And most of this stuff, by the way, let me see if I can introduce, because if you notice, there's going to be some pictures, but pretty much almost everything I'm gonna show you guys is based off of this one guy's video where he did a TED talk. So it's difficult for me to find which one has his. Well, we'll get to him. He'll show up. I'll make sure that I show you guys his name. Matter of fact, his name is TM Reeves or TM Rives or Rives. I'm not sure. Right? Rives, possibly. Rives. So so most of these pictures are taken by somebody who doesn't look like me presenting it or whatever. I was doing some research. I saw his video and I was like, he's got all the pictures right here. I'm just going to go ahead and use it. Okay. So you can look it up on TED Talks, look up TM Rives and be able to look it up. T dot M or T period M period Rives if you want to do some research on this, or if you just want to look on Patreon, we'll make sure that we send these pictures to you and share them with you later on. Okay. All right. So these are things that are there. And if you notice, same seal on the front, right? Now, what's interesting about this is when you do some further research, you'll see things in there because it's not that much, but you'll see something that's highlighted. You'll see that the person who is on the right-hand side is a European. By the way, this is not their real names, but this is what they're called. The person who's on the right-hand side, his name is Dexter, right? So that's the European on the right-hand side, stage right, right? The person on the right-hand side, stage right is what? I'm sorry, Sister Cynthia, I didn't see what you pinned. Oh, Sister Goodness. What can we learn from Manhattan is a topic. Okay. I'm sorry, Sister Cynthia, if you pinned something, I missed it. If you want to put it back up there. So the person on stage right is called Dexter. The person on stage left on the seal is going to be called Sinister. These are not names. These are not these people's names. This person who was native, his name was not Sinister. The person who was European, his name was not Dexter. But once again, we don't know what words mean. They're using law and they're twisting things to get you to sign up for stuff that's not even part of who you are. Dexter. If you're in New York, if you're in Manhattan, specifically what we're talking about, right? But if you're in New York too. You said, so was it Dale? Stop asking or making off topic. Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate you. Right. So you got to see that the person who's named Dexter that's not his name, the European, and the person who's native, his name is not Sinister. Do you know what Dexter and Sinister mean? So you think dexterity just means hand movement, or you got the ability to do stuff with your hands and your feet. And you think sinister means bad or evil, which it can be used for such things. But do you know what the original terms mean? See, people say we're making this stuff up. You got to read for yourself. I went and I read some of this stuff just to make sure. I didn't want to come before you guys unarmed. How you doing, Brother Alton? Right? Dexter, the person on the right, it's not his real name, right? But Dexter, stage right. Remember, so as you're looking at it, the person on your right is technically the third person on the right is second person on the left, right? And thank you, sis. I see you out there. I appreciate you. Sister Rain, I appreciate you, right? So the person who's on the right is called Dexter. Do you know what Dexter means? It's going to be so simple, it's going to mess you up. Because you thought that Dexter or dexterity meant this whole thing, didn't you? And you thought sinister meant this whole thing. Watch this, right? This is going to bless you. Dexter means right hand. And sinister means left hand. How you doing, Sister Valerie? That's it. Dexter means right. Sinister means left. If it's Dexter, it's right. If it's sinister, it's left. But what happens in our culture, especially those of us who hold a certain canon, how do we look at the right hand? How do we look at the right hand of the Father? What is that? What is the king's right hand? What is your right hand man, your right hand girl? Right? It's old news for lefties. Yeah, people be treating lefties like redheaded stepchildren. You can't find no scissors, all that stuff, right? So right hand, though, is what? Power. So anything with proper dexterity or dexterous, excuse me, we would say is powerful. I'm not saying that left-handed people are bad. Just hear the context. I want you to get the culture, right? Remember, if you go even to your own people, indigenous, or you go to your own people who are in Africa, West Africa specifically, I'm talking about, but even all over the stretches, you eat and you're supposed to eat with your right hand. If I'm speaking to you, I would never, if I was speaking to a crowd back home, I would never do this. My left hand, because they would lose their mind, or they would listen, but they would win. I'm telling you from personal experience. When you go over there, you speak to them, they wince when you use your left hand, because the right hand is how you do business. It's how you operate. It's how you help. It's how you eat. Right? Israelites would lay down and on their side. That's why they wash their feet. I know we think this is a whole thing of this exercise of foot washing and stuff becomes ceremonial, but they would wash their feet. Why did you wash your feet? Because you laid down when you ate at the table. That whole thing of the Last Supper, you got that messed up in your mind. They would have been laying down at an L-shaped table, and Yahshua would have been at the corner of the table. And as they lay down, they would eat with their right hand. You've been told never to lay down when you eat. You should never go to sleep after you eat. But if your body's correct, you know you can swallow food while you're upside down. Right? Like, you could literally be upside down. Somebody could put something in your mouth. You could swallow it and it would go up. You've been taught, right? You just shouldn't go to sleep, because once your body's asleep, or you shouldn't rest too hard, because once your body's asleep, it stops digesting. I mean, it's trying to digest, it's trying to fast, but if it can't fast, then it starts trying to digest, but it's at rest, which means it's not an optimal efficiency. So you would lay down on your left and you would eat with your right. And since your feet were up, you would wash your feet, because just like you would wash your hands. You would dip your hand in the bowl to wash it at the table, but you would have somebody wash your feet from a bowl as you came in, because they didn't want you to be bringing what you were walking into the table. But once again, we don't have the culture. So since we don't live it, we don't get it, right? But when I go back to Shwi Nation, yeah, we're going to eat with our right hand, and it's okay to lay down a little bit and chill out or whatever. Nobody bats an eye, because that's cultural, right? So Dexter is talking about the place of power, and Sinister is talking about the place of no power, or at least somebody who's secondary, because you could have somebody sit at your right or your left. Now watch this. Like, if I was sitting up at a throne, right, my queen would be on my right-hand side. My son would be at my left-hand side. If my son started getting to a position of power, though, and it was clear he was getting ready to go ahead and take over for his father, I might at some point switch him to the right hand. If I don't not right, just let my queen become the ruler, right? But Dexterity, Dexter is the right, sinister is the left. They did that for a reason. So when you see it, you operate in a lot of this stuff unknowingly because you know that power is on the right hand side. So when you see somebody on the right hand side of the shield, what's right? And also think about it. If you're on the right hand side, whatever's on your left is less powerful. We don't want to talk about it. See, we learn the truth about Manhattan. We see the truth about a lot of different stuff that's still going on. It's the same story. It's the same story. Right. But as we keep on going, right, and we see that there's somebody named Dexter and somebody named Sinister, but we don't know their real names. Why would they call them Dexter and Sinister? They want you to know that one has power and one is less than. Right. Even as the seals grew, you go from 1625. Now we go to 1664. You see the same seal. It's something that the city clerks use today, right? If you get the book, you'll see clearly execution of custody of the city clerk. The city clerk gets power because of who gave it to them. You said you got to meet, right? I get it. I'm not saying left-handed people don't deserve any play. I'm just making sure that you guys can comprehend what's going on, right? They're telling you a story. They're telling you his story, right? Now watch this. The natives, the Lenape, mixed with Jamaicans, right? And lived in Manhattan. By the way, does anybody know what the word Manhattan translates to pretty much? I have zero clue what I'm talking about. I literally showed you a book written by the state of New York. Like, you got to talk to New York. Tell the people who write the laws in New York that they don't know what they're talking about, right? Don't come and address me about something they wrote. Go talk to your boys. Go talk to your boys in Manhattan. It's weird. I literally just showed you a book where it's written out with what the city clerk uses for power, and you won't just go read the book. It's so wild. But anyways, right? Oh man, I appreciate you though. I appreciate the effort. Like, I really do. The ad hominem, you're trying so hard. You think that ad hominem, goes with carpe diem. I get the culture that you come from, man. I don't understand it, but I comprehend it, man. I comprehend it. How you doing, Sister Austria? Right. I appreciate you though, man. That was a great try. That one, it tickled me. I know you were looking for a different reaction from me, but it definitely tickled me. You said, is this from desert culture that has designated wiping or paper because it's so rare? Well, I mean, people used to wipe themselves with many different things. You can wipe yourself with leaves that are better for you and softer than any tissue, but stronger at the same time. Right. So culture, whatever culture you go to, you're going by what they use, right? Because really, if it's toilet tissue, right, and it's tissue paper comes from trees, you could just use the leaves from the trees instead of going through all that. But people won't forage for anything, including food. So we just have to buy everything, right? But you could literally just go out every day, and you shouldn't be eating but once a day anyways, technically, if you can get to that point. Right now we're doing intermittent fasting, so this should be easy for. But if you knew what to go out for, but you got to know what you're looking for, right? I'm not telling you go out and forage if you don't know what you're doing, but you could easily go out, get a leaf that's better and it's going to feel better, and it's actually going to be medicinal. You're going to feed your body while wiping yourself, but instead you look for dead things. And so we wipe ourselves with dead things. I don't know why we want dead things touching our body so much, or things that have been killed, but whatever. Yeah, depreciating equals appreciation, right? Lamb, yeah. So it's lamb something. My wife, if she's on, she could probably tell us better than what I could say, because she's the herbalist of the family. That's her business. But see, so these Lenape people, they had this word Manhattan, right? This word Manhattan, it means these people crazy. I'm gonna put it in modern terminology for you. Manhattan basically means these people crazy. You said you missed it. Somebody was asking about what leaves were best to wipe yourself with, and they mentioned lamb's something like lamb's ear, but I was saying you would know what it is that would be best to wipe yourself with if you were foraging for something, if you knew what you were looking for. But yeah, they Manhattan basically means like, yo, these people ain't right. They helped them, but they thought they weren't right. They don't do things right. They also had another name for people that were coming over in general. Lamb's ear mullen. That was the other one I was thinking of. Lamb's ear mullen, which if you let it grow huge, it has huge leaves. So you could use one leaf for a couple times in the day, right? And oak's leaves as well, right? So everybody got access to oak leaves just about, right? But Manhattan, my wife actually said the same thing. Sounds like Manhattan too, right? Yep. See, so, but Manhattan, it means these people ain't acting right. That's what it means. And now the people who are over Manhattan are people that what ain't acting right. Right. And also they had another group for these people that were coming. They called them Shu Anak. Shuanak, I think. I mean, it's hard because they didn't write words the way we wrote words, but if we were to give it phonetic sounds, the closest I could come up with is Shu Anak. SHU space ANAK. And that meant salty people. Now, we don't know exactly what they meant by it because a lot of this stuff is covered up. More than likely, it probably just meant they were coming from the ocean, which was salty. Or it could mean that these people were angry sometimes, which is salty. Or it could mean that these people were kind of the same color as salt. Which, by the way, what's some of the best salt to use? Like we were talking about earlier, a lot of people don't use white salt. A lot of people want to use what? Pink salt, colored salt. Now, salt comes in many different colors, by the way. Right? So when you're talking about this stuff, the Lenape people who are in this area, remember the map that we're focusing on today, right? If I can find it again, hold on. So the Lenape people who are in this Gowanus area, right? You have Jamaicans there, you have Rockaway, you have Maspeth, all this, but you also Manhattan, right? So in this area, because we do this weird thing too, where we think that like what somebody named it means that's where people were. The people of Manhattan were all, or I'm sorry, not the people of Manhattan, the Lenape people were all over the place. They were mixing with people all over the place too, right? It's just like when somebody says Ghana. Like if you're talking about modern Ghana, then yeah, I'm Ghanaian. But if you're talking about ancient Ghana, I mixed into that so I could say, sure, I have some credence there. But ancient Ghana is where Mali was. Mali is not where modern Ghana is. The people who were with Kwame and Nkrumah, they came up with using the term Ghana because they respected the people of Mali so much. They loved Mansa Musa and his culture. They loved his big brother. They loved his big brother who walked around with Muhammad, the prophet. So they named it after that because some of them were mixed, but also they loved the culture. They want to think of themselves as kings. Who better than to think yourself as the richest man to ever live? And the people of Mali, they were Timbuktu, right? Like it keeps going and going. They were educated, highly educated. They were rich. They allowed people to do things of different cultures, different tribes. So they wanted to take that same thing to allow Ghana, which was all these different tribes that had been put together. They said, let's be the same thing they were. Right? So Manhattan is something that stretches. It's like, by the way, if you go to Georgia and you go to something called the Olmacagi Mounds, I believe it's called, you'll discover there that those were by Mississippians. Now you'll be like, I'm not in Mississippi. How can it be by Mississippians? Because Mississippians are the tribe that were over there. Mississippians stretched out all over the place. Matter of fact, Mississippians, they built pyramids. You'll be standing on mounds, which are pyramids. Some of them we shouldn't be standing on because they're actual burial grounds, but you have to see a bunch of mounds, a bunch of pyramids. There are more pyramids in Georgia, Mississippi, and Alabama than there are any other place on earth. Did you know that? Right? Where's the biggest pyramid in the Americas at? Actually, I don't know if it's the biggest. It's definitely the most ancient, but where's one of the biggest pyramids that's right in the heart of the United States of America? You can go visit it if you want, but you never learned about it. You got pyramids in Arizona as well, most definitely, right? Matter of fact, when we were going there on our cross-country trip last year, there was a lot of places where they had pyramids where you would have rest stops, right, and native land and stuff. And when you stop there, they had little bathrooms. Like your rest stops are like a little different. They're pretty much like outdoor rest stops and stuff like that. And all types of huge spiders and stuff like that we were seeing in there. It was a little trippy for somebody who's used to, Northeast or Southeast, American culture. But you see a lot of pyramids over there, most definitely, even built into a lot of the stuff that they have. But one of the biggest places to visit a pyramid in the United States of America, or one of the places to visit one of the most ancient pyramids. Now it's covered by grass, so you got to know what you're looking for. But you can actually go visit one. It's in Illinois. It's actually in Illinois. One of the biggest pyramids in the world. I think it's the biggest, but I'll just say one of, just to be safe. So somebody studies and be like, oh, he don't know what he's talking about. Right. But it's there. But what I'm trying to say is, like, culture travels a lot further than what you think it is. I don't have the exact place in Illinois right now. I can try and Google it, I guess. See, I don't know. See, it's saying pyramids here. So it's giving a bunch of them. But one place I'm seeing it pops up is it says the Cahokia Mounds, which are mounds. So I don't know if that's the one I'm really looking for. The Cahokia Mounds. It says it's it's at the UNESCO World Heritage Site near Collinsville, Illinois. Collinsville. So I don't know if that's the one I'm looking for, but it says the size was calculated in 1968 as about 100 feet high, 955 feet long, including access ramp at the southern end, and 775 feet wide. I don't know if that's the one I'm looking for, though. I don't think that is, but that's one you can go visit right there, right? So, and once again, these are mounds. So these pyramids, they look like what the South American mounds, which once again, all of us are Americans, if you're indigenous from here, right? Because the United States of America is just 50 countries that took over native lands, that had signed these false treaties, that have come together, united under a federal government that now makes it a United States corporation and not a country, right? 28 USC 300215A, literally by law, the United States is a corporation, not a country. Okay. But yeah, so you can go there and look at yourself. But there's many pyramids all over the place. We just think pyramid is only Kemet. By the way, Kemetic people got their culture from Cushitic people. The word Kemet, chemistry, it comes from Kemetstry. Kemetstry is the study of melanin, the study of pineal gland, study of black, right? Kush literally means black. As much people say there's no such thing as black, we're just all shit. Cushitic people call themselves black. They had no problem with it. So don't say you're Cushitic. Don't talk about your bloodline being Kush if you're not willing to be black, because that's what they consider themselves to be. Oh, wow, thank you. I appreciate that. I've never seen that one before. Cool. Right? I'm just saying. It's a different culture. People go see in the culture you were raised in, a lot of people are afraid to broach the subject of what black is, because in your mind, black is a bad thing, or we shouldn't talk about black because it's a bad thing. Matter of fact, Irish people don't like to talk about black. They like to call you blue. If you ever meet an Irish person, they will call you blue. They'll never call you black. Why? Because if they call you blue, that's respect. And they dealt with blue black people, but they have things there called black, and black was always something negative. And since they're not down with racism, even though there are racist people there, I'm not saying everybody can't be racist or everybody can't be true or blah blah. There's no overall, but if you go to Ireland, they don't want to call you black, they will call you blue. So if they ever call you blue and you start saying, no, I'm black, it's okay, they'll be like, no, over here in our culture we can't call you that, because in our culture black is bad. You said being an indigo person isn't a bad thing? You talking about being an indigenous person? I don't think being indigenous is a bad thing at all. I don't know about indigo. Oh, well, I guess indigo, you talking about what? Really dark black to where blue or purplish hue shows up. There's Nigerians called, blue black people. There's West Africans called purple black people. Right? We have a problem with black because we come from a culture where black means terrible or terribly disgusting, right? But a lot of people come from culture to where, like, if you go to Cushitic people, like Ethiopian, South Sudanese, Congolese people, who even reaching up to people that are in what you call the Middle East now, which is where Queen Sheba, where she actually had her capital moved to when she was the queen of all that. She she had no problem saying she was black. Matter of fact, look up something called the tints of Kedar. Depending on your biblical version that you read, Bible version you read, you'll either see her say, "I am dark and comely," which is equivalent to like pretty or handsome. She'll say, "I'm dark and comely," "I am black and comely," or "I am cush and comely." If it's cush, cush means black. Black means dark. And if you look at the people that still exist today, she says, she gives you a clue. She says, "I'm from the tints, or I'm as black as the tints of Kedar." As much as you guys think that nobody referred to himself as this, she says, "I'm as black as the tints of Kedar." Look up the tints of Kedar, even to this point, where people still live like that to this day. The tints of Kedar are made out of extremely dark black fur, goat fur. So if you Google the tints of Kedar, you'll actually come across that, yeah, she's saying how dark she was. And she says, "I'm dark and comely." Comely means what? Pretty. If it's for a man, comely would mean handsome. But she says, "I'm dark and very beautiful. I'm extremely beautiful out here because of my darkness." Now go to Sudan, South Sudan, go to Ethiopia, go to Cushitic lands, go to South Congolese people, things of that nature, who are Cushitic, right? Even go to places in Kemet where Kemetic people still exist, even though they're not in charge anymore. And you'll discover that their version of beauty is extremely dark skin, very white teeth, and extremely dark gums. So that's the standard she's talking about. She's saying that I am dark and comely, and all of her subjects believe that same thing, that was the standard. You said, but a blue animal is gray. So many term differences. Um, yeah, I guess. I mean, people try to do that. Whatever. All colors technically are a mix of things, except for basically all colors are kind of coming out of the same place, which is dark. All color comes out of darker colors. We have to add white or add lighter things to it to make something that's dark become lighter. You know, that's why even when they talk about, even though we really don't have an actual context of what a black hole is, because they told you black holes were this and that, but then they found that there was a black hole recently, supposedly, according to science, there was a black hole that apparently a star went into, and then actually fragments of light came out of it the same way it went into. Right. So we don't really know what this stuff is, but you know, um, you know, darkness is where light comes out of. You got to have darkness to light. That's why the evening and the rising is the first day, and the second day and the third day. It's always darkness to light. Darkness has to exist. You came out of darkness. You came out of triple darkness in order to be born. Anyway, we want to slice it. So they have these Lenape people who saw the Shuanak, salty people. And as they were coming in, they started calling them Manhattan, which is literally saying these people crazy. You said the firmament. Well, I don't use the term firmament because firmament is a term for Greek god somebody wrote down. It was actually originally the Laquai, and Laquai is talking about a substance that came out of, but before it existed on Yom Bet, or the second day, Yom Aleph for the first day, darkness. And then water started to form. Holy Spirit, she moves upon it. And then you're introduced to darkness and light. But remember, it's not physical darkness and light. So you hear we're talking about the spiritual principle. We're talking about confusion and enlightenment. Why? Because the sun, the moon, and stars don't even exist until the fourth day. Right? So we still have to keep it contextual, right? It doesn't exist till the fourth day. So, you know, but as we keep on going, so right, so we have all this stuff, and we don't even realize that to the Lenape, the Shuanak were Manhattan. They brought this thing of Christianity. Now they had heard some of this stuff, believe it or not, because there were people that were already coming over here before 1625 and 1619, etc. Remember that these people looked funny. Remember when you guys talk about Thanksgiving, remember Thanksgiving was never a holiday, right? And Thanksgiving was not this big feast. First of all, the European word for Thanksgiving actually used to mean a time of fasting. So when we're doing our fasting, our intermittent fasting for this week, right, from today till Thursday evening, doing intermittent fasting, not eating through the day, that is Thanksgiving. So when you hear about Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving is not just being thankful and happy, but Thanksgiving is also letting go of some things, fasting from some things. How you doing, Dice Apple? Right? That's what Thanksgiving actually is. You're from Seneca, Seneca, Iroquois. Okay. I'm Haudenosaunee. How you doing? Right? Also, don't get this lost too. We're talking about New York. What in New York was Iroquois nation as well, by people that you would call former slaves or African Americans. What's the place in New York right now that people go for runs on all the time that used to belong to Seneca people? You see this? Great way of actually introducing more. Seneca Falls, right? Seneca Falls, you now know it as Central Park. And right next to Central Park, there's some water right there, right? That water covers up another place that used to be where Black people live. So Seneca Falls, where these African Americans were, was actually a place where these people identified with their Iroquois or Haudenosaunee roots. You think of them as being African American, which they would have never considered themselves to be. Once again, we go back to if you go back to the map that we had up earlier, you have the same place where you see Manhattan, you see a place called Jamaica. Why is it Jamaican? Because Jamaicans were everywhere. I mean, if we're just gonna be honest about it, we don't have to work that hard. The burden of proof is not on me; it's on those that came before me. Seneca Falls, literally, Central Park is a place. Remember, George Washington cleared out New York of natives. He should have been fighting just the British, even though he was British, but he should have been fighting his own family so that he can go ahead and get this Masonic stuff going and get Morocco to go ahead and give them power later on. But instead, he kept fighting natives because they hated him that much. Hey, how you doing, Knuckle Sandwich? I appreciate your life. Thank you so much for being on. Right. So, right. So you see the people are literally telling you who they are. And people come on and they don't like when we say, yeah, this is stuff that actually existed. It was okay when you told us we had no history. It's okay that in February you say Black history can start at slavery or right after slavery. Hey, Martin Luther King Jr. died, and then we felt bad about it, and then we made sure we cleaned up our act. Get over it. Even though Martin Luther King Jr. died smothered, there's books out on this, right? Martin Luther King Jr. died smothered in his hospital bed because they didn't want him to come back and be a martyr. And by the way, this person, but we keep going into this, the Shuanok people who are still arguing with this today, right? The Lenape people still dealing with this. The Lenape people who are tied to the people of Seneca, right? The people of Seneca tied to the people who are Iroquois. We had this interesting thing that happens, right? Where now we see Christianity coming. They already knew about biblical principle. Matter of fact, as I was trying to get into, don't forget 1619. Also, you talk about Thanksgiving. Remember that when Thanksgiving was there's a name that you need to remember. You said New York itself is crazy in spirit. Yeah. There's a name you need to remember. You ready? This name is, you know, this name, you were taught about it in school. This name that you need to remember is called Squanto. All right. Have a great day, Justin. Right? Squanto. Squanto's real name is Tisquantum. Squanto, when these people came over to the Americas, who you were told, you know, they had their first Thanksgiving meal and all that. And these were the first people to come over. These were Puritans that came over on the Mayflower. Right? That person, and they taught you this in school. They said it was like a miracle that he could speak English. How could he speak English if nobody had ever been here before? But that is a lie. That is a lie. By reading, I don't know the exact books on here, but if you read this, you can find this stuff for yourself, right? Squanto's real name is Tisquantum. Did you know that? Squanto's real name is Tisquantum. Squanto's name is Tisquantum. Why is that important? Because Tisquantum was a slave in Spain and then in England. And somehow, some way, the family let him go free, and they put him on a rickety boat to send them back over here. That's how they sent people to their penal colony, to their prison colony they had over here. There was a slave trade already going on. The Lenape, the Wampanoag, you said that's false. It's definitely not false. You need to read. Once again, Thanksgiving was not a nice dinner and all this stuff or whatever. Thanksgiving was something where they came to sign a treaty. There were no Native American women at Thanksgiving dinner. None. Because they didn't trust them. There were about 200 Native soldiers that came, and they brought some food because the people didn't know how to feed themselves. And they sat down for days, not for a meal. They sat down for days to work out a treaty that was never actualized. It was never honored. And the chief of the Wampanoag people, or at least what was left of them by that time, didn't trust Squanto when he came back because Squanto had PTSD. Squanto basically had become a house Negro. And he said he was weird. He was acting weird. And Squanto came back. He dealt with a lot of stuff. When he came back to find out that his wife was dead and that his baby was dead and that his tribe had basically been wiped out by chemical warfare. You call it disease. But we don't want to admit that, they threw blankets on these people. They would wrap themselves in their disease and throw blankets on them. These were people that were either coming over to make slaves, or they were people that were left over here in a prison colony. America's a prison colony, just like India was a prison colony where they sent British and the riffraff, just like Australia was a prison colony where they sent the riffraff. Am I lying? Oh, you're 100% false. First of all, I can't be 100% false. That's ad hominem at the highest. It shows cognitive dissonance on somebody's part, right? But I'm telling you stuff that you can look up. We know that they use chemical warfare. They talked about it. It's written down. The burden of proof is not on us. It's on those that came before us. I don't have to tell you that America is based on slavery. Why? Because there's people that told you that they left the Union to make sure that they kept slaves. Georgia said it. South Carolina said it. Texas said it. Mississippi said it. Virginia said it. Right? I can keep on going if you want. Jefferson Davis, he became the president of the Union because he gave a fervent speech to say that they didn't like that Abraham Lincoln, who they knew was Melungeon. He was a third white, or I don't know if you can say a third, but he was part white, he was part Native, and he was part African. He was a freed slave who had been able to escape, and therefore became a slave owner himself when he married his wife, Mary Todd. She had slaves, so when he married her, he married into being able to own his own people. He tried to tell him in a letter in 1858, Lincoln did, saying, hey, don't trip off this. I'm going to end up being president, but I need y'all to know, I think that the black race is the inferior race. He wrote a letter about it. He's the one that told you that Thanksgiving is a real place, or a real thing. He's the one that said, we'll make Thanksgiving a holiday every fourth Thursday. It's not even on a particular day. That's when you can really tell if something's real. It's not even on a particular day. They move it around to make sure that you can have a 4-day weekend. Oh, yeah, of course there were multiple presidents. I'm just saying they knew who he was, right? They knew who he was because we can look at the drawings of the day to where they had, big gorilla-looking black people with big lips carrying them on top of them and stuff like that, right? I'm just right. But see, watch this. Here's one of the things that's also interesting when you talk about Manhattan. See, when you talk about Manhattan, we got to be honest about Manhattan as well. If I'm going to talk about Manhattan, I'm going to talk about what happened with the Lenape people and all this stuff. They had this. There's a person being depicted right now. This is the first pastor of Manhattan, or of New York, even considered to be the first pastor. And he said, he is the one that, as I said earlier, he said that the Lenape people were as treacherous as they were tall. He also didn't like the fact that they would show up and they would smoke tobacco at his services, and they would laugh at his services, because he would preach stuff like, hey, you guys are evil and you're going to hell because our God says that we're better than you. And you need to start listening to his word. He said that they were dumb, they were stupid, they were slow. And he was crazy. But I get the context because I get the culture of it, right? Like, you had somebody coming over saying that because we serve a God that looks like us, we're better than you and we're civilized. And they would laugh at that because their mindset, this is their culture, this is their canonical viewpoint. They believe there were people that grew out the ground. They were people of the earth. That's what they believed. It was more important to be people of the earth. right? They believe they came out the ground. They thought it was weird that how you gonna tell us that we're not people and that we're stupid, we're dumb, we feeding you, and we're people of the ground, and we know how to do these things. You said play the videos. Feel free to go look at it. It's right there. Right. Feel free to go ahead and go there. I'm not gonna play something, especially something that might get us, strikes against us and all this stuff on YouTube, right? I'm just using these pictures. I'm not even talking 100% about what he's talking about, you know. But if you want to get some of it, it's about 9 minutes long. You'll be able to get some of this stuff out of it for sure, right? You said, why did they listen to him? Why not? Why not listen to somebody's point of view? It didn't mean they agreed with it. See, we have a weird thing. See, even in this, right? We don't listen to each other's point of view. But it's very much so a cultural thing to say we should listen to your point of view and not say that you're wrong because we don't agree with you or what you're saying doesn't look like what I'm used to. But they would laugh when he would say, oh, you guys are stupid, you guys are dumb, you guys are slow. You guys are sinister, but we're Dexter, as we talked about earlier. It makes sense in our culture to say, we'll listen to you. Even if we don't think it makes sense, we'll listen to you. You'll even see something if you didn't notice on there. You see all these things. This is another thing that we can learn from this. How many of you see people wearing headdresses and stuff like that all the time? Gotta wear the headdress. Let me wear the headdress. I can wear whatever I want. I don't care if it's cultural. I don't care if it's offensive, this, that, or whatever. Right? Gotta wear a headdress. Got to make sure that you're doing that, right? Matter of fact, people use the headdress because it's their way of saying, like, we can't tell if somebody's native or not. We can't tell if something's native or not. So we can make it native. We'll just say, put a headdress on. We needed to be, if we needed to be native, we're going to find a way to be disrespectful to somebody's culture. Got to wear the headdress. Got to wear the headdress, right? We got to make sure if you don't comprehend this is native enough, we're going to write about native. We're going to make sure that you got to put a headdress on. That way we can say that you're native. We can say, yeah, but you're supposed to earn it, right? That's why, like, I mixed with some stuff to where I could put a headdress on, but I haven't earned it. See, when my elders say I can put it on, then I can put it on, but I got to earn that respect. I've earned the right to be a Jeligliat, right? I didn't just become a marah or teacher, even in Avda culture. Like, I had to have somebody tell me, you're marah. And then I saw that they were marah. I knew the family lineage. I said, okay, I can accept that. Right. So, and by the way, a headdress is something that for a lot of tribes is something that has power, has a lot of power. And it flows to certain places too, to other tribes. Cherokee, you had the headdress. Depending, Iroquois, you had the headdress. Sioux Nation, I believe, you can wear the headdress. But you have to earn it. It's for specific things. But here's the wild part is that they're putting this headdress on everything in Manhattan, right? To say, hey, you guys see that's a native clearly, right? Because they have a headdress. Yeah, Mara teacher, right? You said bro said Moors are Native American and wear headdresses. He's wrong. Cherokees don't wear headdresses. Some of them do, bro. You know the Cherokees are more than just, by the way, Cherokee's original name is Anakitawaya. So if you're talking Cherokee, are you talking modern? Are you talking Tisalagi? Are you talking Taino? Are you talking Anakitawaya? Do you know the difference between Anakitawa and Anakitawaya? Right? Like it's just, there's differences in that, right? But you can. Now, some wear them for the wrong reason. Some wear them because they're $5 Indians, whichever one we want to talk about. But if you had given me a chance to be able to tell you what's coming up next, right? But the headdress is something that you see different people of different tribes wear, right? Not every Cherokee is doing the same thing, right? And don't worry about it. We don't have to be rude like they're being rude to us and all that stuff. Let people, some people just going to be rude. That's what it is. They have to try and take over something. And they think that I'm going to like bow down to something that because I don't know what I'm talking about, right? But here we are dealing with this stuff. But if we're going to be honest, right, this was more so, this is what I was trying to get to before the person was telling me how terrible I am. How you doing, Trauma Shaman? Is that you have a lot of people who are in or but a headdress who it was really worn by were people in the plains. Not everybody wore headdresses like that. It became something that was more spread out, especially when more natives had to start working together. Too bad we didn't do it from the beginning, but the headdress was something that was worn by particular people, right? But the people are further than what you might think they are, because where did they reach to? What are the places that at one time we knew for a fact in the 1800s, especially, right? Up until then, everybody was wearing headdresses, and then you got to ask where were the tribes located, and where did some of these tribes move from, or were removed from when they were wearing the headdresses, right? Watch this. When we go to that place, well, we can see that this is where the headdresses were. Now, Manhattan is somewhere way on the east, right? But somehow, some way, they got you believing that people that were way in the center of the United States of America are somehow, some way doing the same. You have it in your mind that people over here are doing it because that's how they put it. Because everywhere they go, everywhere they go, they say, "Hey, look, everybody knows what a headdress is attached to. So we'll just say, if we need you to wear a headdress, we'll just say everybody has to wear it." But it was only worn by specific people, by particular people for a particular reason. Now, eventually, if you know the story of how this works, by the way, we don't do this correctly. See, even Anakitawaya or Cherokee people who are more so like in a different region, more so close to the one end, you'll see that they end up being forced to travel to places like Oklahoma, where they still reside as well. Now, I'm not saying Cherokees only reside in Oklahoma, but what I'm saying is you got to see where mixing and matching of stuff comes into being because they're forced into these positions. So I don't have to argue this stuff because the what they say, the proof is in the pudding, and also the burden of proof is not on me, it's on those that came before us. So if you forcing these people into particular people, don't forget about what the Trail of Tears. If you don't believe that they were forced before then, you definitely know they were forced then. Seminoles are forced from Florida all the way to Oklahoma, right? They were forced too, right? Choctaw, we're talking Mississippians. They're forced. Trail of Tears over to Oklahoma. You're having mixing and matching of stuff, right? And what they did though was they said that they wanted to put them on. Now watch this. I showed you guys a coin earlier, and we told you what the original definition of an American was. And the original definition of American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. That's according to Western law, right? That's according to Western law, right? Well, if we go a little deeper into that, you can see the headdress even is something that they use to be able to arrest your people. But we could go a little further. See, once again, people don't want to be honest about this stuff and see how it's all over the place and how they're putting it everywhere and trying to make sure that you on the left hand, that you're sinister, and they put the European on the right hand side. That means they're dexter. They have dexterity. Dexter means the right hand, the side of power. Sinister means the left hand, the side that has to acquiesce to the side of power. Right? It's on everything. We showed you earlier, right? We showed you much earlier that it's on bells, right? Or statues, excuse me. Statue shaped like a bell, excuse me. But it's on statues. It's on your seals. It's when they grade your food, right? It's in the books, the code, where they literally are telling you that it's Dexter and sinister, right? It's in seals as they continue to go from 1625 to 1664. It's everywhere. We even had it in one of the books, right? And that we showed you out of. You can see in there clearly, right, that the city clerk needs to be able to stamp this with approval. People don't like my saying it. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong for saying it, right? But as I was saying, so you can even see it on police badges. Police, by the way, are what? Policemen come from slave patrolmen. Where's one of the biggest places where slave trade was done? Wall Street. That's where you get stocks and bonds from, right? Matter of fact, one of the worst is one of the best places to learn from, but one of the worst places to go to if you want to know about what happened. There's a huge cemetery right there at Wall Street. A lot of you have passed it and never known. Go to Wall Street. You got to ask around a lot if you don't know what you're looking for. But go to Wall Street and start searching, and you'll find that there's a cemetery there, right? It's really not even labeled as a cemetery, but it's a place where they just threw slave bodies there. Babies who couldn't eat properly from their mothers because their mothers couldn't get up the energy to make sure that they could store enough fat to make sure that they could have enough breast milk to feed their babies. They died of malnutrition. They were malnourished. People who worked and had the same kind of injuries that they had in the sugar plantation where they had sugar cane, Haiti, where people had injuries that are the same injuries that sports stars have, to where like they would have, when a sports star has a lot of these muscle injuries and things like that keep them out for a long time, and ligament damage and all that. A lot of times stuff like that happens because of literal meat ripping off of their bone. Well, the slaves were doing so much stuff on a daily basis, they have the same injuries that people have playing gladiatorial sports today. Some of the same injuries that you see in the NFL, they had the same injuries today. Police badge and slave patrol badge, and pop up and you'll see the same badges that were used back then, or the same badges that are used today. And of course, you did have some of that with the nursing, of course, where there were women who had to feed other babies before they could feed their own. Matter of fact, there's plenty of stories where men were supposed to be out somewhere and just left to die, tied up. And so women that were pregnant would actually breastfeed the men so that they'd be able to survive. And people would be like, how did they survive so long? You had slave women that would literally make sure the men were breastfed so they'd have some kind of nutrients. But people say we're making it up. It's because you don't want to look for it. And I get why you don't want to look for it. And it's okay you don't want to look for it. But don't act like the silence is truth. There's an old saying that when the truth is covered up by silence, the silence becomes a lie. So you might choose to live in silence and live in a lie. That's fine. But just admit to the fact that you're living a lie. This part I was talking about earlier, copper-colored people indigenous to the Americas. This is an actual coin, a real coin. You only think about pennies with Abraham Lincoln, who, by the way, he wasn't copper-colored, but they basically considered him to be of the copper-colored people. Remember, he was part white, part indigenous, part African. Right? But this is a real coin, 1901. Do you know how this coin actually came into existence? This is how much they trick you. Do you know how this coin? Do you think that this is something? Now, this is a Lenape person. But didn't I just tell you Lenape people didn't wear headdresses? Remember I mentioned that earlier, that something is wrong about this coin, and it's not going to be the person or even the way the person's face looks. It's going to be the shape, or it's going to be the headdress. That's why I mentioned the headdress again. This coin was made. Do you know how this coin came into existence? Right. And the only coin that we use that's still copper colored is somebody who's got, genes that we would say are melanated, for sure. Right. So I was trying to get here. The person was arguing and the headdress and blah, blah. I'm trying to get you to a place where you can comprehend what we're talking about. See, because now that we've done there and we've done all that, watch this. Right. The headdress is not something that a Lenape person would wear, but they minted this after an actual Lenape person. What happened is the person who worked for the mint, or the U.S. Mint, so official place that they make this stuff, the person that worked for the U.S. Mint, they, his daughter wanted this person to pose for a coin, right? Just like we talked about how with, if you're talking about Nigeria, the whole reason why Nigeria is called Nigeria is because it was somebody's side piece. It wasn't even somebody's wife. They didn't even have the audacity of somebody in their culture that they let their side piece name a whole country and not even their wife. That's wild, right? Somebody from somewhere else who had a side piece said, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and let you name this country. That's why you call it Nigeria. We talked about Nigeria before. You can go look up the recording for that, right? But it's not the side piece here. It was somebody's daughter. And she, because of what happens with headdresses, she said, this is how we say you're native. right? This is how we say you're Native, is that you got to wear a headdress. So she said, I want you to pose, but wear a headdress. The Lenape individual said, no, I don't want to wear the headdress. How you doing, Philip? He said, no, I don't. I really don't want to wear it. She was like, no, you need to wear the headdress. Like, no, I really, it's not something we do over here. I know that's what you think all of us do, but I really don't want to wear it. You said you were always curious about why they stopped using silver and coins after 1964, right? She goes, no, I really want you to wear the headdress. He says, all right, fine. And he puts it on and he poses. And that's where you got this penny from. Not because the people actually wore it, but because you had some Karen, and I'm sorry, because I know Karen's supposed to really mean grace, and I hate the fact that we even use that word there, but you get what I'm saying. You had basically somebody with that type of energy that literally reshaped the way you think about the Lenape people, even if you know this is a Lenape person, for real. You might not even be aware that this is a Lenape person. Thank you. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Tisaponia. I don't know if that's actually Tisalagi at the beginning, or not Tisalagi, but Tisade or whatever. So I apologize. Right. You said Central Park info of what I was talking about. Go to Central Park. You can read it in books and stuff as well, but go to Central Park or Google Central Park, Seneca Falls, and read all the articles that are going to pop up. But go to Central Park. The only thing that's left there that they leave their physical evidence, besides the fact you can look in the water to see the other city and look at the bottom of it to see pieces of city that are left, right? People that were, the city that was messed over, but they have a sign there as you walk through, when they had those historical markers, and go look at the historical marker and you'll discover that it used to be called Seneca Falls. Or Seneca Village, excuse me. Right. If you go there, you can see it. I'm not just shooting from the hip. I'm not just coming up with random stuff. I promise you. Like, if you go there, you'll notice it. You'll see it. Right. If you go there, you'll see it clear as day. It's there for you to see. They don't care if you. Well, I guess they care if you see it, but what you gonna do about it? It's kind of the thing that happens now, right? Which is why you have to stop worrying about somebody else to give you something that they've already shown they're not going to give you, right? But in 1901, they had this coin. That's the 20th century. Are you not in the 21st century? That happened so long ago. No, this 20th century, right? 1901. That's when we just finished talking about the Boers or Boers. If you know who the Boers were in 1901 and 1902, look up Boer, England. And you'll discover in 1901 and 1902, they had concentration camps in England. And not only did they get the Boer village, but any group of people that were black, they started putting them in concentration camps. That's before Hitler. Hitler didn't even fight in World War I until World War I is 1914 through 1918. Y'all don't even start looking at Hitler as a bad person until the 1930s. We talking 1901, 1902. 20th century. You said just like Daughters of the Confidentiality totally shaped the way history was viewed. Yep. Or even Daughters of the Confederacy as well. And all that. Right. That's the only reason why you even believe that people fought for states' rights instead of states' rights had to do with the right to have slaves. Yeah, you could talk Wounded Knee Massacre. By the way, we mentioned Lincoln earlier. Remember the same day that he signed a declaration Emancipation Proclamation, excuse me. Same time that he signs the Emancipation Proclamation, he's killing off a bunch of Lakota and Dakota people, which is why they call them town destroyers. And so do Sioux people. They don't call them presidents. They call them town destroyers. They don't care what color they are. And Lincoln is a traitor to many natives because Lincoln was native and still did those atrocities. Lincoln, when he was supposed to be fighting the Civil War, was sending Union troops over to California to fight the Khalifa people over there and kill them all so that at some point they can come and take their land too. Everybody who's on that on Mount Rushmore for you, they all dabbled in killing natives. The one that's missing that they should have put up there, should have been 5 of them up there. The one that's missing is Andrew Jackson. He was the worst of the worst. But Lincoln is considered to be worse than George Washington, worse than Thomas Jefferson, and worse than Theodore Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, by the way, who said that basically if 9 out of 10 natives died, I wouldn't bat an eye. And if I turned, and if somebody wanted to kill the 10th, I would just simply turn so I wouldn't see it. That's your president who sets precedent if you're still considering yourself to be part of this corporation. And you had this sitting right underneath you. It's buried. People just build on top of it and don't say anything. Right? But remember, Lincoln is a former slave. They don't like to talk about him that way, but that's who he is. His daddy was somebody who owned him. He speaks on that. He talks about the fact that in the state he was born in, you were allowed to treat your child like a slave. Why? Because if your child came from a slave, you could treat them like what they came from. It's right here. These presidents told you. I didn't have to write this stuff down. I didn't write the book that I showed you guys. The city of New York wrote that book to tell you why they use the seals that they use. And people are still going to argue against what the city of New York is telling you today. It's always interesting. People say there's more to Google. Yeah, fine. Go to a New York library. Go to a New York lawful library. Go ahead and try and become a lawyer if you'd like, and study some of the stuff that's there. You have to learn this stuff in order to pass. Right? But let's keep on looking at some of this stuff. We can learn a lot more from it. Chappelle thing earlier when they said that they saw this Dave Chappelle piece he was talking about this part of what I'm about to talk about. The sale of Manhattan. In your mind, or at least in the mind of those who try to teach you. And that's a cold mindset to be part of, sure, right? And the mindset of what they're trying to teach you, or the mind of the people trying to make you who you are, and trying to make you to still think of yourself as being sinister instead of Dexter. There was a trade that happened, and this trade really did happen, where basically it was about $24 worth of what some might just call beads or things like that, or jewels or whatever, about $24 at that time, right? Which still doesn't equate to that much money, especially for Manhattan and the millions and billions, millions that people are paying for like regular houses. People paying $2 million, $3 million for like a house that you could like got 2 bedrooms in and stuff. Crazy. But they basically say, oh, we got that because the Lenape people were dumb. They were stupid. They traded with us for just beads, for meaningless stuff. When the reality is the Lenape people don't live by the same standard. See, what's wrong is you live in the land of your captivity. You got to be in their system, but not of it. And it's hard to deal with. You mean I got to be in their system and at the same time not be of it? How do I do that? Because their system's based off of money, right? This is why it's difficult. See, a lot of people say it's difficult for Black people or for Native people or for this and that to deal with money and stuff. Like, no, it's not really difficult for us. It's just something that doesn't entice us the same way as it does y'all. It, like, to us, part of us looks at the hip hop game and doesn't like the fact that they think that they're all that because they wear chains. Like, we don't mind wearing chains. We come from places before they put chains around your neck and around your wrists and around your ankles. We came from places to where wearing chains was acceptable, but it wasn't what made us who we were. Right? It doesn't make us who we were. We didn't think about who we were according to chains. Right now, Lil Boosie in Louisiana, who's looked up to as almost like a godlike figure there, he got to have a chain, this and that, and blah, blah, and this is what make me, and I'm going to get this. But, the original people that were there before you started thinking le français was your language, and you had 40 different shades of paper bags and stuff, right? Or compared yourself to a paper bag and had 40 different shades, and you were thought about the same way they thought about you in Haiti and all that stuff. Like, that wasn't really important to you. Matter of fact, when they came and they saw the Aztecs, I know this is further down, not too much further down in all honesty, right? It's like technically right there on the map, but the Aztecs, who were Taino as well, who were Olmec as well, um, when they came to their city, they said everything was gold. But yeah, like, if everything's gold, it's not a big deal to us. This is just how we roll. Like, we are like the children's toys were made out of gold. Kind of reminds you of Shamayam, or heaven, where the streets are paved with gold, and the streets that are gold are so pure gold that it says you'll be able to see through it while walking on it. You're gonna have white gold, clear gold. Sounds similar, doesn't it? Because it's a culture that's being voiced, right? But we didn't value stuff like they value, right? We don't really value money like that. It's not like, it's not a big deal. Somebody can make all the money in the world and they'll still go to jail based off of it's the principle, bro. It's the principle. Now, it's not smart, but I'm just trying to show you how culture sometimes thinks. It's like, that person can have all the chains in the world, but still will go to jail for the rest of his life because he's trying to make sure it's the principle. You said West Africa has empires? Of course. I was literally talking about Shwe, Ashanti. We talked about what? I don't know why I'm trying to say Nubia. The Benin Empire, we talked about them. What was that, Sunday or Monday? Right? So we have many. Yeah, we have many. We talked about Mali today. We talked about the actual original Ghana that came out of Mali. We talked about the original Timbuktu. By the way, it was a woman who developed that country for the most part, and at least started us in our development of it. And she actually is the one who came up with the idea of what we now call universities. So yes, we know this, right? But what I'm trying to say is that we didn't think about those things as being a big deal. If you Mansa Musa and you got so much gold that when you spend it to try and make sure everybody be like you just give them gold, and you mess around to have it to where gold has no value for 10 years. Gold doesn't mean that much to you. Had a whole place called the Gold Coast. You used to walk around the Gold Coast and people would be tripping over. I've been to the beaches. People would be tripping over the gold. You had to be careful out there. You might stub your toe on some gold. Reminds me of California, 49ers, gold rush. Come on, right? Now you have no gold, but you still value it. Why? Because they took your gold from you. Your currency is based off of gold, but the gold standard was done with Nixon and really was done with Calvin Coolidge. Yeah. That's why JFK got killed, because he was about to bring back the idea of greenbacks. That's why they killed Lincoln. Lincoln didn't get killed, even though they didn't like him being a black dude. But when he said, I'm bringing them greenbacks, all of a sudden he did. You say, no, that's not true. Look at what Calvin Coolidge had to say, how he thought they was going to get at him. You don't like that? Look at JFK. JFK said, I found in law that we're not supposed to allow you guys to tell us to do stuff with our money, or even let you tell us when we can print our money. So we're going to just pay off our stuff to you, Rothschild family, Federal Reserve Bank. By the way, the Federal Reserve is not part of the United States Corporation. It is something completely different, right? So he said, we're going to go ahead and stop dealing with y'all. We're going to make our own money. All of a sudden, and you can look it up on YouTube. Supposed to be a driver, right? Secret Service been driving. All of a sudden, he goes like this, reaches in, grabs something, hand goes back. He pulls the trigger underneath his arm. Pow! As soon as he does, JFK's head goes back. Then the driver's hand goes like this, goes right back. The Secret Service person who's right in front of him doesn't even look behind him. He just looks in front, then gets up, starts looking towards a certain way. And then JFK's wife, she doesn't react to a gunshot coming from anywhere else or in the grassy knoll. She reacts, she goes back like this, away from where the shot came from. And then starts trying to take care of her husband. Like, you can actually look at the tape and see it for yourself. Because somebody said, we about to free ourselves from the Federal Reserve. Rothschild said, no, we don't do it like that. They said, no, you don't get to just go ahead and break away from this. You signed up for chattel slavery, 13th Amendment. You signed up to be a corporation. Corporations have owners. 28 USC 3002 15A. You don't just get out of here like that. I don't care if you're the president. You owned in this system. How you doing, Brother Terry? Yeah, he was going to back the back the dollar by silver, because your money is supposed to be backed by gold or silver. That's what really allows it to be a negotiable instrument, a bill of exchange. Hmm. Come on, somebody. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know, right? It's supposed to be a bill of exchange. It's supposed to be a note. It's supposed to be like a check. Your money is a check. Every dollar you spend is supposed to be a check. You know, technically by law, you should be able to go into a bank or go to the United States Corporation and say, "Hey, I'd like to trade in this $1,000 that I have in my pocket. I want to get $1,000 worth of gold." And they're supposed to be able to give it to you. The problem is they can't give it to you because they got rid of the gold standard. When they got rid of the gold standard and they asked for all of y'all in the 1930s to turn your gold in, and you believed them because they said all U.S. citizens bring them in, and you thought that you were a U.S. citizen instead of realizing you were a state citizen first, or at least a non-citizen national, but you just gave it up. So now there's no gold for them to be able to give because they took your gold that they asked you to sell it to them for a certain price, and then they sold it to everybody else for like 3.5 or not even 4.5 times what they asked you to sell it to them for. So now you have nothing to back up your money. Your money has been cryptocurrency since before electronic currency even existed. And that's before Bitcoin. You know, electronic currency existed before Bitcoin. Come on, somebody, right? Like, you know, you be talking bad about Bitcoin, but if you got to, I don't have my wallet. I was going to grab something out of it. But if you got to go in your wallet and you got to swipe a card, it means that everything on that card is a number, but there's no money in the bank. Like if you're in your checking account right now, if you have $50,000, and bless you if you do. Praise y'all that you making it, right? If you have $50,000 in your account right now, and you were to go to the bank and say, "I want you to give me 50,000 of those numbers," the bank would say, "We can't give it to you right now." You said, "What do you mean you can't give it to me right now?" They said, "We don't have it." And if they don't have it, it means it's not in your account, does it? Or doesn't that mean that, right? But you have a false sense of money. So once again, remember, these people were Manhattan. That's what the Lenape told them. They said, you're Manhattan, you crazy. See, they said that we want to purchase the land from you for about $24. The Lenape people were like, "Purchase the land? You want to purchase the land? Like, we don't own the land." That's what they said in their mind. They were like, "You want us, like, we can't get that." They were like, "No, we need to do it this way because in our culture, we need to do this is how we roll." They said, "Okay, y'all crazy out here. You want to buy the land? Sure. Sure. Give us $24 for it." You said bank wouldn't even give you 3,000 yet, right? See, in the Lenape's mind, in their culture, in the way they live, they don't value ownership of land because how can you own something that doesn't belong to you? Remember, the Lenape people, they believe they were people that were literally born of the soil, which, by the way, that sounds familiar too, right? Doesn't that sound like Adam, who you call Adam? Born from the soil, had a spirit put inside, and then breath of life into him he became a living soul. Sound familiar, doesn't it? But the only way we can have something in this system is we have to be in their system, but not of it. So I've got to take ownership over land, but I'm not supposed to own the land. That's why if I take ownership over land, I'm doing that for the West. Western law, you say I got to have ownership. Okay, I got ownership over land, right? But after that's done, Western culture, I need you to comprehend on my private land, now that I have ownership, which means you can't mess with it, and my private land, I worship Elohim. He can have ownership over it because I'm just a steward over what he has. I'm not an owner of the land. I'm a steward of it. But if I got to speak your language, see, you got to learn how to be able to interpret this. If I need to be able to talk to you, I need to be able to have a deed that says that I have the right to do things indeed on land. So that means that therefore I'm saying I own it. But since I'm a private citizen and I have private land and my land is allodial, that means that anything I do on my land, I can do it because I also privately have made a declaration that says that this belongs to you. So on paper, publicly, the land is Kofi's. On in the spirit, privately, the land belongs to Yahweh. So that means that anything that I do because he says do it. He says grow food on it, I grow food on it. He says take care of it, I take care of it. He says love your wife on it, I love my wife on it. He says love your children, I love my children on it, because it really belongs to him. But if I'm dealing with somebody else and they say, well, we don't like what you're doing on your land, I say it doesn't matter, because according to your system, I own it. I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. So if you try to show up with worldly stuff, I don't have to let you on to something that no longer belongs to you, because you believe in ownership of land. So I dealt with you. I rendered Caesar's things to Caesar's, but on my land, I give what Elohim, what's his. You see the principle? And thank you for the love, by the way. Sorry for missing that. See, you see the principle? They'll have you believe that the Lenape people were dumb, because how could you sell your land? But to them, they were Manhattan. They were dumb, because how in the world could you buy something that doesn't belong to us? And they kept saying it. They kept saying, we can't give you what's not ours. They said, no, give it to us. We can't give you what's not ours. No, give it to us. And they said, see, they gave it up to them. They were like, shoot, well, maybe tomorrow they want to buy some grass. Maybe tomorrow they want to buy the water. Maybe tomorrow they want to buy the air. Maybe tomorrow they want to buy breath. Maybe they want to buy a soul. And how little did we know they actually sold their soul already? So maybe they would try to buy your soul and get you to sell it. But perspective matters. Yeah, wickedness, yes, 10,000 times. So if you're not careful, you'll let somebody let you believe that, oh yeah, your people were dumb when they did that. No, like, we recognize what it is, right? Still to this day, I have to teach sovereignty. I have to teach how to spend. I have to teach how to use negotiable instruments. I have to teach people how to use paperwork to make sure that you're not dealing with certain things, right? I have to, because you're in the world. But the reality is that once you get your privacy together, start living your culture. See, you have to be considered to be a people. Right? You have to be what? You have to be considered a people. People don't belong to the public. Straw men do. And they'll have you believe you gave up your land. Like, how could we give up what we didn't own? See, now I can have a legal conversation. Because if you're trying to say, well, you signed a treaty with us for blah, blah, like, we didn't sign the treaty. We told you we couldn't give you something that didn't exist. Or if we sign these treaties and we find out you said something verbally, the verbal contract is wrong. Or the verbal contract we believe is strong. So you said something verbally, but then you lied and you wrote it in a written contract and you tried to get us to sign something written. Which one's more important, verbal or written? They're both as important. So if you're going to say one is more important than the other, you're a liar. But we don't even think about using stuff like that, do we? See, by the way, I'm not concerned about trying to get reparations. I believe we deserve it. But see, reparations belong to a people. You got to stop being part of this wicked system before you can even get reparations. That's why you got to get free. If your food still comes from the people you asking to give you freedom from, then how does that work? You had to look somebody eye to eye. This is something that I used to use quite often on here, but allow me to use it again. Let's say that there's a poker game going on, right? And I know this isn't exactly how it works and blah, blah, but just hear me out. Hopefully you get the context. Let's say there's a poker game, or let's say there's a blackjack game. That's easier, right? Before I had to try to explain rules and stuff. Let's just say there's a blackjack game. Blackjack, the goal is to what? Get 21, right? The ace can be 1 or 11, right? Kings, queens, jacks, tens, right? And then everything else is the number that it says, right? That's pretty much how we play, okay? I think most of us can agree to that as one of the versions we play. It ain't exactly Uno, where everybody plays 7,000 different styles. Okay. All right. Let's say there's a blackjack game going on. And in this blackjack game, it's one of those blackjack games that are in a room. Now, technically, even if you go to a casino, unlike when you see these movies where it's always there's some room that exists that nobody else is allowed into, there's no room that you can't just walk into when it comes to gambling, believe it or not. Some casinos, they do have that. I take that back. But for the most part, like, they might have rooms where they're trying to only get certain people to go into, but anybody can technically go into any room. Right? Oh yeah, I can't help it sometimes. It just is what it is. I be taking care of stuff. I'm on here all day anyway, so sometimes I just got to let who I am show what I'm doing stuff, right? But so let's say, right, that we deal in that, right? And there's this room. Let's say there's a blackjack game going on, and there's a $50,000 minimum. So that means you can't play a game unless you have at least $50,000 worth of chips. And so that's the minimum. So to play, you have to have 50,000, but obviously if you want to play more than once, or if you want to increase your bet or whatever the case might be, you got to be able to have at least bare minimum 50,000, right? To be able to go all in. And let's say there's one group of people in there, we'll call them Europeans. And let's say they have $1 million worth of chips. And let's say there's a group of people in there, I don't know, let's call them Chinese. And they've got $500,000 worth of chips. And let's say there's a group of people in there, I don't know, let's call them Indian, not Native American, but Indian. Let's say that they have $100,000 worth of chips. Maybe let's say 250, keep it easier on math, right? We got 1,000,000, 500,000, 250,000, right? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, let's say there's these people called black people. They come in there, and they didn't realize that this game was being played. But now that they know that the game's being played, they want to play. The dealer says what? The dealer says, well, you got to have at least $50,000 worth of chips. Now you thought you was winning on the level that you was. You was out there on the slots. You was out there, I don't know, all the games, cribbage, roulette, etc. Right? You thought you was winning out here. You was playing blackjack, but it was on a lower level, right? Maybe you had a $50 minimum, something like that, right? So you got $20,000. You go, ooh, I'm 30,000 short. Can I play anyways? The people look at you, they start laughing. No, this game ain't for you, bro. Then you say, well, but y'all didn't even tell us this game was being played. And I work for you and you don't even pay me enough. And I used to be a millionaire too until you took my money, and now I don't have anything. And what am I going to be able to do with this? And blah, blah. And if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have. And they say, that sounds nice and everything, but we don't have to give you nothing. So then you start marching around and you get some other people to come in there. We're not going to calm down. We're going to go to the news. We're going to say this and that or whatever. So finally, the people that are playing, right? The person with $1 million, the person with 500,000, the person with 250,000, they look at each other. They say, you know what? The Indian person, in India says, man, whatever. I'll give them 10,000. China says, man, I'm just trying to play and make some money. Fine, I'll give them 5,000. Now you're up to 35,000. Person says, oh, whatever, 15,000. They give you enough. You're able to play the game now. However, if you're going to play that type of game, right? If you're going to play that type of game with them, you're going to have to figure it out. But if you haven't played on that level, there's stuff that they're looking at doing. They might have be in league with the person who's at the table, whatever the case might be. You don't know what's going on. You're not that great. You just happen to get a hot streak on your level. You thought you was doing something. You thought you was going to ride this out like you did when you was shooting dice. Right? Behind the church. I'm sorry, y'all didn't do it behind the church. At the 7-Eleven, at the gas station, in the alley, whatever. Right? So you play, and here's the wild part. You really didn't know the rules. You was just winning randomly. So you get an ace and a 10. You already won. You say, hit me. Dealer looks at you crazy, like, you got an ace and a 10, right? You say, hit me. He's like, this isn't really how. Hit me. Because you're trying to play a game that you don't know how to play. He hits you. You end up with a 5. You say, hit me again. He says, okay. You get a 3. You got 18 now. You say, hit me one more again. He says, look, you might just want to stay with the 18. You could probably win. I mean, it's lower probability, of course, than what you already had, but you hit me again. You get a 4, you lose. You say, well, that's not fair. I didn't really know how to play the game and this and that. He said, well, I tried to tell you certain things about the way the game's played, but you didn't want to listen. The other people laughing at you. Now, what happens if after that you say, okay, all right, give me some more money? They say, no, we're done. We ain't giving you no more. What needs to happen there is you go away and you get yourself together and you get your business together and you strengthen yourself and you got stuff going on. And now you come back in and you say, all right, all right, I'm ready to go. They laugh at you. They say, we remember you from last year. What you gonna do? What, you need 50,000 again, man? Whatever. I'll give you 50,000 myself this time. I would have laughed at. I want to see you mess up with this. I want to see you put it right back in my hands. And you say, oh no, I'm fine. I got 800,000. 800,000 of chips. Yeah, I got it this time. Okay, well, whatever. Right? How did you do that? Ain't your business. You do what you do. I'm gonna do what we do. You play this time. You start winning. How you? Whoa. Yeah, I've been studying. I've been playing. I've been working on it. I got myself together. I showed up this time. I'm ready for you. See, you want to get to a place to where you're not worried about it. Malcolm X taught us that if you have to ask the person who is jacking you up for a job, you are in bad shape. Yeah, you're not gonna blindside me this time. But see, we keep going back to the person who hasn't done you righteous yet. This time when I vote for them, they'll do the right thing. This time when I work overtime, they'll give me the promotion. This time when I send my child to school instead of homeschooling them myself, this time this child will be the one that learns about their culture through their school system. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to call you this, but if the shoe fits, wear it. If it doesn't, take it off. Y'all love Einstein. Didn't Einstein tell you that the definition of insanity was doing the same thing over again and over again, expecting a different result? But we keep doing it instead of getting ourselves together this time, right? And here's some more stuff. If you want to read about it, you'll see that basically that the um that the natives, or I'm sorry, the Dutch, excuse me, the these gentlemen were people who said that they were a great spirit and everything because they were able to get this land for absolutely nothing, when the natives didn't care either way because they were like, it ain't yours. They didn't realize that what they realized was for everybody was something that somebody wanted for their own devices. Right? Somebody says, I don't like that one that you gave me. Okay, there's another one. And like I said, if you're part of the Patreon kingdom, you're gonna have access to this after the live anyway. So don't worry about it. If you Patreon family and you miss it, it'll be up there for you, right? Soon after the live. Right. And by the way, if you don't believe about it, see, you don't realize that money's not real. You don't use money, you actually use quasi money now. You might not know what that is. So allow me to go ahead and show you what quasi money is. Quasi money is a term that refers to assets which can be easily converted to cash because they are in high demand and are issued by entities with excellent credit worthiness. Examples of quasi money include gold certificates, bonds issued by credit-worthy governments, that would be your birth certificate too, and certificates of deposit issued by credit-worthy banks. By the way, is there a such thing as a bank with good credit? Sorry to go sovereignty here, but is there a such thing as a bank with good credit? You know, if I wanted to start a bank, I don't have to have but only 9% of the money that I claim that I'm going to be giving out to people that day. Did you know that? If I was going to start a bank and I had 10,000 and I said, I'm going to start today with $10,000 in it, I only have to have $900. Did you know that? That's law. By the way, there's laws now in the books that say you can have even less than that. So you don't deal in money, you deal in quasi money. Money, currency is only what you agree upon. If we don't agree to it, then it's not currency. It's a negotiable instrument. So I don't have to have, yeah, we talk about that in sovereignty too, right? Like we start off with that with these banks, these idea banks. Like your bank does not have to have money, right? Matter of fact, this is what happens when you go to your bank for a bank loan. See, you don't think about this. When's the last time you went to the bank for a bank loan and they put cash in your hand? There are black owned banks. At some point, once we get the land, I'm gonna work on the SOC bank to make sure we have something for ourselves and we can control what we lend out and what the prices are going to be and all that stuff. It doesn't take that much to start a bank, believe it or not. You can actually start one if you got enough money. Just go ahead and actually go through another country and then just bring it over here. But have you ever gotten a bank loan and they put the money in your hand? Of course not. You got a loan for your car and they gave you, oh, okay, 60,000. You know, here you go. Right here you go. 55,900, 55,000. You know, 55, 56,000, 56,100, 56,200, 56,300. They didn't do that, right? It was fake, and they didn't have to have but 9% of whatever they told you. No bank has good credit because no bank has actual money because no bank has actual gold or silver to back it up because the Federal Reserve has no gold or silver to back it up. That's one of the main reasons they killed Gaddafi. Gaddafi was about to literally make something for West Africa where he had enough power, he had enough stuff that they were over, and he was going to go ahead and make sure that there was actual like minerals and jewels and things like that that could back up their money. It was going to mess up the whole system because they were going to have something that you didn't have or that they didn't have. They were going to have actual money. They wanted you to stay in quasi money. You think that the dollar is real. That's the problem. As long as you agree that the dollar is real. But there's other negotiable instruments. Do you not know that you can make up your own currency? Not just cryptocurrency. You can make up your own currency today. You just have to make sure that you make sure the paperwork's right. So it's approved. But you don't have to spend $1. You can spend whatever you want to spend. You just got to get enough people to do what? Agree that this is what we choose to spend. But you got to have people, not sheep. Actually, I don't mind even being sheep. But how about this? Not goats. But you want people. How you doing, Sister Wendy? See, so we don't know the difference between money and quasi money. Here's something else that you can learn about Manhattan. In the same place, in the same culture, you're going to start seeing things that start happening that you're like, hey, how in the world is this happening? How do they do this? How do they get us to believe in certain things? So this is a statue, if you're not familiar with it, of this is William Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare is considered to be a very smart person, right, in their culture. Now, I know there's people who argue that there's a black woman that possibly wrote all of the William Shakespeare stuff. I don't 100% know. There seems to be some evidence towards it, not 100% sure, right? But, oh yeah, your cousin making their own crypto. A lot of people are. You know, you can make crypto today, right? I'm just not in a position to really focus on it right now, but it's something down the pike. You should be making your own money, literally making your own money, right? I make my own money. No, you don't. You take like quasi money, right? You don't make your own money. You can't even have money unless it's allowed to be printed by the Federal Reserve, right? We should be making our own money. That's the problem, right? But you have William Shakespeare. Now, William Shakespeare is interesting. If you look at him, he has a big forehead. Now, why is that important that he has a big forehead? Well, he has a big forehead because there's something called phrenology. Phrenology basically is something that you attach to eugenics, right? And so when you get phrenology and eugenics and you put them together, you say, I'm crazy, right? Right. But when you have phrenology and eugenics that come together, they start saying stuff like, well, if you got a big head or if you got a big forehead, right? If you got that 5-head piece, see, we make fun of people in our culture for the 5-head, but in their culture, they say if you got that 5-head, it means you smart. That's why you still think people with big heads have big brains. Because that was part of the phrenology. That was part of the eugenics. Right. But they taught that you have phrenology in there. Right. That phrenology is saying how smart you are. So because of phrenology, William Shakespeare got a big old forehead. And that's why if you look at a lot of people from back in the day, see nowadays everybody shade themselves bald because they don't want you to think of them as balding, even though they bald. You learned it from the Roots cover. There you go, right? So a lot of people don't want you to know they balding, or matter of fact, even before I was in the military, I wasn't supposed to, but I liked the bald look. So at one point, I was actually literally shaving myself bald because it's clean. People think of it as clean, but it's actually something. If you're balding, it's showing that something's going on with your body, right? You're sick in some way, shape, or form. How you doing, House of Lots? But these people went through this eugenics, Darwinism, Carl Linnaeus, all these things that we mentioned, phrenology, all this stuff we're talking about, right? That where they believed that because these people were bald. Why? Because balding people were some of the people who were supposed to be the smart ones. So they started telling you guys, well, if we're balding, it must be because we're smart. No, it's because you don't eat right. It's because you're sick. You might have a disease. But all these people that you start looking back in history, some of the great minds and great people that you look at, you like to look at a lot of them as bald. As a matter of fact, that's why a lot of them even wore wigs, right? The wigs, the wig party, right? And they said it was because they were smarter. I'm balding because I'm smarter. As I get older, you're older, you're wiser. So since you're older, you're wiser, and then you lose your hair. When you get older, it must be because I'm getting smarter. That's what they said. Oh, okay. Ocelots would definitely be lifting you up. Right? Now watch this. On the opposite side, all right, same Manhattan, right? We're dealing with dexterity, right? Dexter is not a name. Dexter means the right hand or the right. Sinister means the left hand or the left. So we had a Dexter piece where right hand, strong, power, keep balding. On the left hand, though, you got a Native American who doesn't even really look like a Native American, but you got a Native American, and they're supposed to have hair because they're not as smart. Can you see? I want you to see how they put this stuff in there. They throw this stuff in there, right? Now, watch this. When we put them together, well, the person who has dexterity, they must be bald. They must be somebody who has power. They're smarter. It's the power of thought. They have a bigger forehead. They have a bigger head, right? We don't want to talk about this Neanderthal DNA. Which, by the way, Neanderthal didn't mean that you had a Cro-Magnon and all that stuff. It just meant that you were what we would call today white people. Even though, remember, there's no such thing as a white person because you have melanin. You can't be alive if you don't have any melanin, right? But you have somebody who's balding, right? And where is the brow? By the way, where is your brow? Where do you consider the brow to be? Right, somewhere in here, right? Your brow. So one person is balding, has a bigger forehead, so to speak, has a bigger head, has a bigger brow. One person has hair that's lower, doesn't have as big a forehead, has a lower brow, right? Some of you already know where I'm headed, but let's just spell it out for you. That means that somebody who's smarter, who's going bald, they're highbrow, and somebody who doesn't have as much forehead, they're lowbrow. Mm. You use terms and don't even think about where they come from. Man, that's a highbrow conversation. Why? Man, that's too lowbrow. I don't really do. Why? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. See, that's why I picked this particular video. I was doing research and stuff, and I was trying to and get all this stuff together. I was like, man, how am I gonna put it? And then I watched this one video. I was like, man, I can expand on this. They put it all right. He put this thing all together for me. Praise ya. Right? It's psychological. It's psychological warfare. Now, it don't matter the shape of your head. I mean, obviously, there's certain things we should look for misshapen heads, but for real, like there's people, there's tribes where they shape their babies' heads a certain way. It doesn't mean they're less smart. I don't even know that name. I had to research it. Melville J. Herkovitz. I think I've heard of it, but I can't say that. But I'll look it up. But yeah, these are geologists, anthropologists that say this stuff. These are people who are literally like looking at phrenologists. These are people who are literally putting together a whole thing. Eugenics, Darwinism, Linnaean principles. Now you can use phrenology. Like one of the ways you can tell if somebody's an Israelite or not is go look at the Israelites that are buried in Kemet, and look at the Israelites that are buried in Israel, and look at the Israelites that are buried in Canaan, and look at the Israelites that are buried, in Carthage, right? And then compare those to people that of the United States of America. And if you are, you will have some certain things we can tell from phrenology, sure, right? I'm not acting like it has zero stuff, but to say that literally the phrenology is saying that, because see, they're not even talking about what's inside the brain or even the shape of the skull as much as they're talking about the fact that they go on bald. So you have people that can't eat right telling you and I that we're lowbrow because they don't know how to eat. Think about the wild mindset of that. Reminds you of what that pastor was saying. That pastor, the first pastor of Manhattan, the first pastor of New York, who said that, hey, y'all are stupid and dumb and slow, even though you were faster and taught them how to hunt and made sure you kept them alive. See, watch this. This is cattail. Cattail. Right? If you're not aware, it is called cattail. Okay. I don't know what the I don't know if somebody, maybe my wife might know. I don't know what the what do you call it? They call it the scientific word, but you have to say the Latin word because they like to uphold Latin because they're still very Greco-Roman in their mindset. But this is cattail. Now, these people who they said, the Chinook people, right, who the people who the Lenape said were Manhattan, they said the Manhattan people would say that the Lenape were in fact dumb, stupid, slow, right? But do you not know that when it comes to cattail, the Lenape people, they would eat the roots or drink it in tea, right? If you got cattail, you should be able, you can do this stuff. They would use the roots for food, use it as medicine, right? They would use the tufts, TUFTS, the tufts. It's called latifolia or typha latifolia. Okay, thank you. Thanks, babe. Right? So they would eat the roots or drink tea from the roots. You said you thought balding was genetic. Oh no, not no. That's like when they say MS is genetic. No, it's not. How you eat, how you medicate. But these cattails, you could take the roots and you could use them as food. They would take the tufts, TUFTS. They would take those and they would actually use them as diapers. These people that know how to do anything, they would use it as diapers. Yeah, basically. Yeah. It was deficiency, right? Anything as far as what's happening with your body is because of nutrient deficiency. Matter of fact, there is no natural cause for death. Everybody dies because of lack of nutrients, right? But so they would use the roots for to eat or for medicine. They would use the tufts, TUFTS, for diapers. And then they would use the leaves for ropes. Hmm. Because they believed in using, even though I'm talking about a different tribe, I just want you to get the context of it, right? They believe in, like what we talk about when we hear people saying, use every part of the buffalo, right? We believe in our culture, right, that every part should be used. Yeah. Never needed jails. By the way, did we have jails? They started sending people over here because they ran out of space in the jails because they didn't have the imprisoned industrial complex yet in England. So they were sending people to basically die off for all they cared. Once they started learning from us and then they started building communities, then all of a sudden the British said, oh yeah, y'all are British again, even though we said y'all were criminals. But yeah, we never had jails. Matter of fact, we didn't have armor, did we? Because even though we might have fights, sure, but we didn't have armor. Why? Because we didn't grow up around places to where you needed to be armored all the time. They grew up in a situation. See, nobody likes to talk about. I forget who the person this is attached to, as far as the person who gets the credit for coming up with this theory or whatever first. But have you ever thought about the fact that the further you get away from Europe, the less armor you see? The further you get away from a Greco-Roman mindset, the less armor you see. I'm not saying nobody was ever armored, but hear what I'm saying. People weren't like, you didn't. The further you get away from having to be in battle all the time, the further you get away. Some of the worst inventions that were ever invented for war are invented by the French. You think today, because they totally flipped the script on you, you think that the French are the most romantic, but you forget that romantic literally means Roman antics. But you call it a romantic language. It doesn't mean it's a pretty or nice or vibrant language, even though I get it. I like the language, but hear what I'm saying. It doesn't mean pretty or nice or vibrant. It just means that Roman people, it's something attached to people who like romantic values. I like saying bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Yeah. Oui, ça va. Right? I like saying that, right? But you know what I also like saying? I like saying shalom. Like shalom, kwam yasta, right? Barak Allah cham yahaba, right? Right? Shalom Allah at cham yahaba. And I Kofi, helet. Mashalam khe. I like saying that too. Why? Because it's cultural. Oh wow, thank you, thank you, thank you, mother 999. Appreciate it. Right, like this is real. The only reason you think about it that way is because you think that Roman antics are greater than your people's antics. That's the only reason why. For real, for real. And by the way, the person who gave the speech, his name is T. I said it earlier, but T. Period M. Period Reeves, Rives. That's where I got these pictures from. So if you want to go look for it, it's a TED Talk. You can look up his name. Look up TED Talk on YouTube. I've obviously expanded upon it a little bit, but it's real. And it goes back to a place of where, once again, we don't think about the value. You think that a Jamaican is only in Jamaica because you don't realize that when you became Jamaican, it's because somebody called you that. We have to be careful, right? Those that know. There's those that don't know. Now that you know, maybe you'll look into it. Maybe you'll think of yourself as who you really are. Maybe you'll start to develop certain habits and certain things and certain traditions that look more like you than somebody else. But you can't, what you've been informed with is what you're going to live by. Right? Here's something. May this bless you, by the way. I had somebody asking about this the other day, and thank you for the love. Right? Took some screenshots of something else that I saw today. Wanted to share it with you. Right? If you want to do something, see, this is stuff that your people use all the time. You don't know about it. Right? At least you should use it all the time. Some of your people still do use this. Okay. But you ready? Somebody talking about, how to get all the mucus out, especially if you're smoking or vaping and doing stuff. By the way, there's no such thing as healthy vaping. It is what it is. A lot of the stuff even has artificial flavors, right? Which means that if it's artificial, you're smoking the artificial chemicals and things like that. But if you want to, you could make this or you could buy this. You could take a teaspoon of mullein, right? Mullein. You can take a teaspoon of mullein. This literally, if you do this right, you should be able to cough up like everything that's in you, from what I've heard. I haven't tried it yet. I'm going to try this myself. But you should be able to basically cough up all the mucus that's in you. I was looking for some stuff actually for my family when we were dealing with some stuff. So I haven't tried it yet, but I'm going to try this, right? So you should be able to take a teaspoon of mullein, okay? you should be able to take a teaspoon of pine bark. And if you know how to forage, a lot of this stuff actually grows near each other all the time. And the way, my wife explains it in an excellent manner, which is always proves to be true. Um, you can easily, a lot of times, stuff that you need, it grows near you. Like that's the way the stuff works a lot. Once you start doing some foraging and stuff, you'll find out, right, that a lot of stuff grows near you, right? So just kind of give you a little extra for today, right? If you're trying to cough up some phlegm, or you're dealing with stuff, or you smoking and blah blah whatever, and you got buildup, this is a way we can start cleansing ourselves, right? Don't cleanse yourself every day, by the way, please. I'm not a doctor, got to say that, right? But please don't start trying to do a cleanse every single day. Like some people try to cleanse every day of your life. You actually hurt your body when you cleanse all of the stuff out your body, because some of the stuff that you're cleansing out your body, your body needs some of it. Okay. It's not in the UK. Okay, well, I have to figure out the UK. Okay, right. But if you look for it, you should. And everywhere that you're doing, it's like what I would do is, since you're in the UK, anybody in the UK, or anybody anywhere where you feel like you don't find this stuff, find something. Like look for something that says this is what's, like, hey, what can I use instead of mullein? What can I use instead of pine bark? What can I use instead of yada yada yada, right? And then once you find that list of things, look for what's near you, or what you can go to a store and get, right? Because you might be able to go to a store and get this stuff even if you can't find it and forage, right? But find those items, and then when you put them together, and then when you say, okay, I got these ingredients, put together these ingredients, and then just make sure that you do some research and say, how does this react with this? How does this react with this? Normally, if it's natural, you're not going to have too much stuff that disagrees, but just be aware of it, because there could be some things that react, right? But so go and do a teaspoon of mullein, right? Teaspoon of pine bark. Okay. You're going to do a teaspoon of elderberry. Elderberry is great, by the way, just in general. So a teaspoon of mullein, a teaspoon of pine bark, a teaspoon of elderberry, right? And then you're going to do a teaspoon of ginseng. Yep, elderberries definitely boost the immune system, amongst other things, right? Right. So ginseng is going to be your energy, right? Um, Pine bark is really going to deal with your melanin above all. I mean, there's other things obviously, but pine, you could do pine tea, and it stimulates the melanin, so it's great. Pineal gland, pine bark. So, but you got pine bark, you got the ginseng for energy, you've got um, elderberry, which is going to be your immune system, and then mullein. Oh gosh, my wife's going to get me on this. I should know mullein. Well, mullei's going to be great for blood flow, things like that. But what is it that I'm really trying to say with mullein regarding the mucus? What is mullein? Babe, what does mullein do? I'm sorry. As much as we've literally foraged for mullein over the years, I should definitely know. It is respiratory. Okay, for the lungs. So there you go. So the mullei's dealing with the respiratory issues. Thank you, babe. I don't know why that was so difficult for me. So mullei's dealing with the respiratory, right? And we're trying to get the mucus out, right? So mullei's dealing with the respiratory. Pine bark is dealing like even just basics, like with like melanin, things like that. Basics, elderberry basically is dealing with helping to boost the immune system. Ginseng is helping even with stuff as far as energy, but it's also something that helps if your energy levels are too high. It's going to bring them down. If your energy levels are too low, it's going to bring them up. Right. So you're going to deal with that. So you can start. And so you put those together, and you should be able to, put that in, turn that into a tea. So you're going to have to steep them, cover up the top, put that stuff in there, cover up the top of the pot, heat it up or whatever, and do some research on how you're actually supposed to put tea together. It's not as simple as just boiling some water and doing blah blah. Like you can mess this stuff up if you overcook it or undercook it or don't put it at the right temperature. Certain things you're trying to get out of it, right? Some people even will go through and then like strain some of it out and then steep it again, so it'll be even tougher. And you can even reach out to my wife, through Bloom and Flourish. She'll be able to help you out with some of that stuff as well through her business, or might even be able to put some stuff together for you that have some of these things, right? But you want to make sure that you put those things together, make it tea. Also, you can get the same thing through. Now, I don't know. I haven't researched this part yet. They say that basically they sell the same ingredients all together, but I don't know if you buy this like this at a CVS or Walgreens. But I don't know if you get, what is it, Better Brand. It's called Better Lungs. So the name of the brand is Better Brand, and it says Better Lungs. But I don't know if it comes with extra stuff in it. It could be the same thing, same concoction, right? But it might be worth it for you, instead of paying $34.99 for it. Might be worth it to you to just learn how to forage for it. But it's called Better. It's the brand of it is called Better Brand. It's called Better Lungs, right? Um, so you can see that it's expensive, you know. Like we be saying this stuff all the time, the stuff my wife makes, and she's giving you guys, a better, a lesser deal for it and stuff like that. That's because y'all fan. Like there's people that will see my wife selling some of this stuff and will buy her out, So, just keep that in mind. Like when you see some of this stuff, like it's $34.99, that's before tax, and I don't even know what state that's in, so it could be higher than that wherever you are. So please check out, if you want somebody to kind of walk it through with you, or just have somebody that can make this stuff for you. If you don't think you can make it yourself, feel free to reach out to my wife at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. That being said, hey, how you doing, Sister Shamika? Yeah, so Better Brand is the name of the brand, and it's called Better Lungs. It's like in a green or greenish, blackish. Is it black? I think it's greenish, like almost pine green. I don't, you know what? I don't do well with colors. I'll say green, and then so I'll just say it's greenish. I don't know. I don't know exactly what color it is. I have difficulty being able to pin down those colors. But thank you, and thank you for pinning that up for us, Cynthia. So yeah, so those are things that can help you, right? But all those things, right? It goes back to culture. We don't think about culture. We don't think where these comes from. We don't even think, you live in Manhattan. You never once thought to yourself, Manhattan means that they crazy, right? You never thought to yourself, who are the Lenape people? Where do Jamaicans reside? Do they only reside in Jamaica, or are Jamaicans people that were thought of as being African, and they thought of Jamaican people also as Indians, and they thought of Jamaican people also as Native Americans? Right? We never thought about the fact that money wasn't real. You don't use money, right, for real. You don't use money to live reality. You live money to get real things. But that being said, I thank you guys. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on with us. We're going to get ready to kind of do our shout out and get ready to take our leave. I appreciate you guys once again so very much, everybody who's on today. And so we're going to get ready to do our shout out. If you're on TikTok, feel free to go ahead and stick around for a little bit. If you're on the other platforms, we do, of course, appreciate you as well. But due to getting in trouble for some of the stuff that we play, as far as the music that we play during our shout out, they'll try to get us, we'll be in trouble. So we're going to make sure that we do things in a manner where we can continue. Thank you, everybody, for being on. I really, really do appreciate you so very much. We're excited. We're thankful. We're grateful. Real quick again. So we are doing our fast, our intermittent fasting. We're starting today. So today, all the way through Thursday evening of next week, intermittent fasting. That means when the sun comes up, we try not to eat. When the sun goes down, go ahead and eat again. And we're doing that, getting ready for February 23rd. February 23rd is going to be when we start removing the leaven from our homes. So we're kind of preparing our bodies to get used to having less of the stuff that we eat, because from February 23rd all the way through April 5th, which is Passover, we're going to, eat specific meals, stuff like that in that evening. And then come February 6th to the 13th, I'm sorry, April 6th to the 13th, excuse me. That's going to be the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So we got quite a few days to go if you're going to try and be leaven free all together starting next Thursday, then we got quite a few days left to go. So if you want to be part of that, we've heard a lot of great stories from the last time when we fasted, did intermittent fasting. Some of you continue to do intermittent fasting, and we congratulate you for that, and we're thankful to you. Seek the Most High and everything that's there. Anything that we talked about today, we give all honor and praise to the Most High for it. We ask that you guys study it, meditate on it. Don't believe it just because I said it. Right. I appreciate you if you're like, man, I just like this dude Kofi. Like, that's cool. But don't believe it just because Kofi said it. Please study this stuff to see if what I'm saying makes sense. Right. And so we appreciate you for doing that. Real quick, as a reminder, too, before we get out of here and take our leave and let the music play on TikTok, as a reminder, again, February 18th, which is tomorrow. So that means that you guys are going to get the Zoom link first. OK, you're going to get the Zoom link before tomorrow. But for those that are in Georgia and the Carolinas at 11 a.m. Eastern, we're going to have our Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. So right after the podcast tomorrow, we're going to have our Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. All right. If you are in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, or Louisiana, we're going to do a Zoom meeting for you all tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern or 11:30 a.m. Central. Okay. All right. That's tomorrow. Okay. And thank you, babe. I see you 11:11. And thank you, everybody else to see you. So if for the 25th, February 25th, if you're in Texas or Oklahoma, we will have a Zoom meeting just for you at 11 a.m. Eastern, which is 10 a.m. Central. So 10 a.m. Central if you're in Oklahoma or Texas on February 25th. On February 25th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern or 11:30 a.m. Central for those in Illinois, Michigan, the Dakotas, so North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Indiana. That'll be at 12:30 p.m. Eastern on February 25th or 11:30 a.m. Central. If you are on the if you are in Pacific time, right? So we got some people in Montana dealing with that. We got some people in Oregon, some people in Washington, some people in Cali, some people in Arizona, New Mexico, Vegas. Vegas mostly, but Nevada, etc. Right? If you're on Pacific time, on February 25th, we're going to have a Zoom meeting just for you all at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Okay. On March 4th, at 11 a.m. Eastern, on March 4th at 11 a.m. Eastern, if you're in Florida, we'll be meeting up on Zoom. And we already talked about we're going to have a Bible study. And we're going to make sure we get you the stuff so you can start researching some things that we already know what we're going to talk about for that Bible study. All right. That's going to be like our third Zoom meeting for that. Georgia, this is going to be our third meeting of the year, but our second Zoom meeting. We did a meetup already physically. All right. If you're on March 4th, if you're in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, New Jersey, if forgive me, I'll be messing up that area if I didn't catch something in those states in that area, right? I purposely left out Pennsylvania. So if you're in, once again, on March 4th, if you're in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, New Jersey, we'll be doing a Zoom meeting just for you all, right? And this is all getting us ready to start having some actual physical meetups as well, right? And start finding out who's who, feeling safe, start talking about where we can meet, yada, 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 all this stuff, okay? So that's what these meetings are about. Your meeting, if you're in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, or New Jersey, is going to be at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. All right. And on March 4th, if you're in Maryland, Virginia, DC, or Pennsylvania, that's the DMV or Pennsylvania. If you're in Maryland, Virginia, DC, or Pennsylvania, on March 4th, we're going to be meeting on Zoom at 2 p.m. Eastern. All right. So I don't know if we hit every single state, probably not, but we hit just about all the states that we have people in. Arkansas. Oh, you know what? We didn't put Arkansas. Did I? I just realized I don't think I typed it up, but that just hit me in the spirit. No, we did. We said Arkansas. So if we don't have your state mentioned or whatever, we'll make sure that we work that out. Okay. But we got people in just about every state now. So we're going to do our best to make sure that we have everybody there. So there are people that reach out to you for your state. When we do our shout out at the end, if you're on YouTube, by the way, you can always just simply look in the description and get in touch with us, or literally look up stuff that you can type up your information, and we'll make sure somebody reaches back out to you ASAP. If you are if you're watching on Facebook, you can look in the description of the video on how to get in touch with us. If you're on TikTok, you can always go to our main TikTok page, click on that, and be able to get you can go to the main TikTok page, click on our link tree, and then the link tree will take you to different places that you can get more information and get in touch with us on. Okay. And then don't forget, after all that, March 11th, we're going to have a Zoom meeting at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time for everybody, right? By March 11th, we're going to have a Zoom meeting for everybody, right? And then and that'll be at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. And then also on March 11th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, we're asking for all the moderators to be ready to meet up. All righty. But I thank you guys. I appreciate you. I honor you. If you're on Patreon, we're going to make sure we have some stuff specific for you, including some of the pictures that we went through on this video. I'll also be trying to upload some videos on TikTok and stuff throughout the day as I have a chance to. I know that because of Tuesday and Thursday, Tuesday and Wednesday with me being I'm under the weather, there's a lot of meetings and stuff that I might have missed. So I promise you, I'm going to reach out to you. We're going to try to do some makeups for you guys or reschedule some things like that. If you're in classes, just look for recordings to come out. And but thank you all. Appreciate you. Thank you for your prayers for myself and my family. Thank you for your gifts of love and patience and comprehension and understanding. And there's a lot of stuff you're helping us out with. You can see we got a lot of stuff to do, but we're going to stay on track. So I thank you guys again. As always, please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, for those that need that extra oomph. And we appreciate you so very much. I thank you. And make sure you study this word and meditate on it so you can not be just hearers only, but you can be doers as well. Until I have the next chance again to talk to you, I appreciate you all. I look forward to you. And if you watch this later on, even on YouTube, even if you don't put this in the line, feel free to even leave a comment. If you leave a comment of where you are, so your state, or even on Facebook, you can put your state and your city, and we'll know where you are. We can reach out to you. We can make sure that you get the information for any kind of meetups or Zoom meetings or educational stuff going on, or when it comes to, we're getting closer and closer. By the way, my wife always wants me to remind you, we're getting closer to the last frost of the year. So once that last frost hits, guess what? You can start growing your food. So start going ahead and putting your stuff together. We've already shown you. You can see this one's off the chain right here, right? This is a root, allowing it to root, right? An onion root. That's it. That's what it is. And you can see something that simple, right? We got all these greens to be able to eat from. And, people don't be trusting you unless you do it, right? But you literally can just have your own. I got my own onion greens, right? Tastes great, right? Onions are also great for your heart, right? So you could be growing food throughout the winter too, just doing something like that, letting stuff root. But once the last frost hits, guess what? We're going to put this right in the dirt. And we're going to get it. We're going to keep it pushing, right? And you just put it somewhere where the sunlight can hit it. So just be ready for those things. You have the ability to do this stuff. It's not something we just talk and we're trying to walk this. All right. So I appreciate you. I thank you so much. I honor the king and queen in each and every one of you, even if you're not living inside that kingdom or queendom yet. I appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor of Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken, until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, just style, that you are loved, you're necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, in you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in the system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Oh, also too, Herbalism 1 class is on for tonight. So we hope to see you guys there this evening as my wife teaches Herbalism 1. Appreciate you all. Don't forget your affirmations, and take care. Thank you, everybody on Facebook. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody on thank you, everybody on YouTube. We appreciate you as well. Have a great day. And everybody else,